big deal. Driver. A governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislators are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi la Wokoh is Jeshi la Wokoh?
I can't say it very well. No, Jeshi la Wokoh.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Monday morning, what's in store? Looks like Joga Road is already piling up, getting into the city centre. Landis Road did it for a week, and it looks like we're getting into week 2 of this drama. Not much happening on Langata Road today. Industrial area looks absolutely great, as does the Thika Superhighway. Not much of an issue there at all. Building up just a little bit around that Pangani stretch. We're seeing some traffic on Waiaki Way getting into the city. Coming out of Parklands, not much right now. Looking on the eastern side of the city, North Airport Road going out towards Outer Ring. That's also starting to build up. But it's still early pickings. Let's see what Monday morning has in store. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127. Let's keep things moving this Monday morning.
Broadcasting worldwide, Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start.
How are you doing? It's 9 minutes after 6 on this lovely 10th day of January 2021. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. This is on Spice FM and online. Ndu Okoh?
Yes?
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I didn't know you were calling me like speaking to me. I thought you were just calling my name in awe.
Okay. And even then, you should just
acknowledge it. Sawa basi. Good morning.
Good morning. How's your weekend?
Fine, thank you. Quite illuminating. Yes.
It was illuminating.
It was.
You're wiser than you were on Friday.
I am.
Yes? Life's lessons.
I tell you.
City Muga. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Rick.
Yeah?
Hey. Wait. Yeah. You know, where I'm from, in the cultural setting of governance, there's something they call the town crier. Still exists. So now, before somebody important wants to enter, before somebody wants to say something, or if there's a message from the Obi's palace, the town crier goes to the palace, ringing his bell, saying, CEO, CEO, CEO. So like now today, I'm the town crier.
Okay.
CEO, 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 CT has come. CEO, CEO, CT has come. The one that said sickness wants to down, did not agree. CT has come. I've cried for you now, you see?
And then what do the people do?
They all... Now you being the people, you clap and cheer and dance.
And then what does the Obi now do?
No, the Obi now comes later to welcome him properly.
Okay.
No.
So QCT, when he comes in, where?
Oh, you have come. Have you not come? You have come. OSCT, come in.
Thank you very much. Mine
It's just small.
is not many. I will just say a few words. To begin
5
with,
hours later.
now just to finish. Folks, thank you.
How are you, though?
I am well.
Uh-huh.
I am very well, thank you.
All the reserve battery is now fully charged.
Not fully, but adequately charged. It's never really fully charged, to be honest.
Ella?
Yes, it
You're
is.
never really fully.
Not really. Not really. So long as the percentile is above 70,
It's good to go.
It's good, yes.
Yes. And it's not draining as fast.
No. That's the other point. So, if you ask me how I am actually very well, thank you.
Good. Welcome to SpiceFM.
Thank you.
This is Madam Ndu Okoh, the town crier.
And you, Eric Latiff, the people.
While
The
you were
people.
away, Eric decided that he wants to run for office. We don't know which one, but we've decided that he's winning. So we're still waiting for him to now,
But I think he who desires a higher office or a higher calling, one could argue desires a good thing. Eric has my support.
It's a
Even me, I'm the campaign
it's a
manager.
misrepresentation of facts.
I'm the campaign manager.
The ground has spoken. And the ground is in the name of one Washira.
Edwin Washira.
Edwin Washira, who said, you know what, Eric, you need to vie. So I said, I'm listening to the ground.
If you're listening to the ground, then you are listening to the right tone, tune, and your ear is well placed.
Yes.
Because the ground is everything.
The ground.
Yes.
So the ground will tell us what direction to take.
I will support the ground.
I'm the campaign manager. We have won. I'm telling you, it's finished.
Good. So we have a lot to discuss today over what's happened over the weekend. So Mythical Inturi, the senator, and what he said in Eldoret, and then what's happened thereafter, the NCIC and the DCI summoning him to record a statement. A commissioner from the National Cohesion and Integration Commission will be joining us at 7 a.m. Let's talk about not just the Mythical Inturi utterances, but any other utterances. Is the NCIC really prepared to deal with such? And then at 8 o'clock, we'll have the person who's now been given the job of chairing the board that is in charge of Raila Odinga's campaign, presidential campaign, like Keep Your Governor Derito Muredi. He'll be joining us at 8 to talk about that. So what's this whole thing about? Is it Azimio? Is Azimio a coalition? Is Azimio a party? Is Raila going to build a coalition? So keep it right here for that. COVID, meanwhile.
Indeed, doing its thing. We spoke on Friday and we were at 300 million cases around the world. Today is Monday and we're now at 307 million. 7 million cases realized over the last 3 days on the global scene is quite a thing. If we're looking at the United States as an example, 308,000 cases yesterday alone, and 308 new deaths. So we're looking about 1% of the current number of COVID cases over the last couple of days in the US has resulted in death, right? So again, these are high numbers. We didn't see numbers like this recently. We've seen the last numbers we saw like this was around 2020 when COVID was doing its initial thing and really hitting hard. And we're seeing these numbers again. It is at this same time that the World Health Organization that has been unfortunately oscillating between, is Omicron mild? Is it something that we can or should not pay so much attention to because the symptoms are mild and it's not going to be so detrimental in terms of what it does to the body, whether you have or have not had your double complete vaccinations? Now, the World Health Organization, unfortunately, is saying something a little bit different and is saying that Omicron should not be called mild. It should not be called a mild variant, milder than Delta, which did its thing on the body, but should actually be looked at as something a little bit more severe. So, recent studies that Omicron is less likely to make people seriously ill than previous variants is now proving to be otherwise. The World Health Organization is warning the world against describing the variant as mild, saying it is now killing people around the world. Monday, which is now here where we are, the US recorded more than 1 million COVID cases in 24 hours. And this is what we are looking at now. The World Health Organization's health agency said the number of global cases has increased by 71% in the last week, and in the Americas by 100%. It said that among severe cases worldwide, 90% were unvaccinated. So looking at the severe cases, which unfortunately ended in death, just 10% of them were vaccinated. Omicron does not appear to be less severe than when compared to Delta. Many are saying, okay, this is a good thing that the World Health Organization has come out less than 3 weeks after they had previously said it's mild, folks, let's not worry about it. But they're coming out now to say, okay, guys, let's not joke about this thing, especially in those vaccinated. It does not mean it should be characterized as mild. Just like previous variants, Omicron is hospitalizing people and it is killing people. In fact, the tsunami of cases is so huge and quick that it is overwhelming health systems around the world. It is highly contagious and can infect people even if they are fully vaccinated. However, still insisting that vaccines are pivotal and as they help protect severe disease that could put you in hospital.
The WHO needs to come up with a clear communication. I
mean,
definition of terms.
Sure.
Or
Very
even
true.
come up with a color code. Say Delta is red, Omicron is
Orange.
yellow or orange,
For
right?
example,
Yeah,
yes.
because clearly, I mean, when you say mild, their definition of mild and everybody else's interpretation of mild looks to be what the issue is here.
Exactly.
It's not that people don't understand what they're saying. It's just that people understand what they're saying in the way they understand what they're saying. I think just to have uniformity of definitions, just color code the thing.
And just say that if we're going beyond this color, then we're saying that we're in a danger zone, you know? So, because very clearly, when you're looking at a weather warning, for example, when it gets to yellow, then you know eyebrows need to be up. When it gets to orange, they say, hey, folks, we're in trouble. When it's red, you know, we're about to be snowed under kind of thing. Let's know what it is exactly, because this is quite unfortunate that barely a month ago, the same organization was telling us that, you know, this is mild, don't worry about it. Symptoms can be mirrored by the flu. That's why we had this flurry on, for example. But now we're being told, guys, it's killing people around the world. Severity, let's take it seriously.
And this disease which doesn't kill people is which one?
Mosquito bite.
It's not that even when they were saying it's mild or saying it's not killing people.
No.
You know, the a simple admission that we are all trying to figure out
This thing.
Yes, we really are.
Yeah.
And we will keep informing you about what we've figured out and what we can support with evidence as we go along. Should we change our mind, it is because the evidence that we presented earlier has now been overtaken by new research, new findings, and this is the situation where we are in. It is less confusing when you come out and say it that way.
Yeah.
But when you start authoritatively as this is it, and we take it that this is it, then you come up and tell us something which isn't quite the it that you had told us before, and now it's a new it. We end up being quite confused.
It's confusing. Let's take a break. 20 after 6. We are live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube and Facebook. Are you online? Say hello. We'll be saying hello to you shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
You've been told if we don't lock between 10 to 4, this is what we're saving.
You try and call them, the same person who was in your house every day, because they know you are influential and you will give them votes. Call them after 1 month and see if they'll pick up their phone.
Don't tell your member of parliament that you want him to come and build a school, you want him to come and do a hospital. That is not the work of the member. Now that we have devolution in this country, this resources should go to those devolved units.
You have to have strong, independent institutions. And I mean, you have to have police who has the right to take the biggest town in the country and question, why did you do this and that, and send them to court if necessary.
Joel Inkericho, good morning.
Salama sana Eric, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama kabisa. Mbunge wako ni nani?
Anaitwa Silvanus Maritim, hapa ni Ainamoi.
Silvanus Maritim, Ainamoi.
Yes. Sasa ile juma nampambia yeye nini? Amalize aende.
Oh, wow.
Asante sana.
Mostly clear conditions in Nairobi, still dark after 6 o'clock. Highs of 26 and lows of 15 today. Clear conditions at 13 in Nakuru, highs of 28 and lows of 13. Nyeri, mostly clear at 11, highs of 25 today. And we're looking at clear conditions in Eldoret at 13 with highs of 26. It'll come down to lows of 13. Partly cloudy conditions in Mombasa at 25, see highs of 33, while Malindi will see highs of 31 today. It's partly cloudy, currently at 26. Clear conditions at 20 in Kisumu, highs of 32 and lows of 19. While Kakamega is clear at 17, we'll see highs of 33 and lows of 15. Kampala is clear at 20, highs of 29 and lows of 18. And we're looking at light rain in Dar es Salaam this morning, highs of 33 and lows of 27. Clear conditions at 14 in Johannesburg, highs of 25 and lows of 13, while in Lagos it's clear at 26, we'll go highs of 33 and lows of 25. Kinshasa is clear at 24, we'll see highs of 32 and lows of 24. Beijing is going into early Monday afternoon at 2 degrees, it's sunny, we'll see highs of 3, and it'll go down to a frosty low of minus 10. It's clear at 2 in Paris, highs of 6 and lows of minus 1, and it's raining in some parts as well. In London, 3 degrees and clear, highs of 8 and lows of 3. And New York Sunday night is reading clear at 4 degrees. Coming into Monday, we'll see highs of 5 and lows of minus 3.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
From one of my favorite places to pronounce, Nams Wailisha. Happy New Year, guys. Tuned in from Muga in Thika. Nice. Alex Mbogo says, clear morning, live from Tetu Nyeri. Good morning. Benson Muasia. Tuning from Nakuru this morning. Gem Uriri Siaya. Morris Otiang is tuned in. Edwin Nganyi says, good morning. CT looks fresh and ready to push the wheel of the nation. Ngwa CT. Welcome back and Happy New Year. While you were away, ... and another dot. Charity Mina for the first time in a while. Good morning. Tuned in from Nakuru. Karibu Nyumbani CT. That's what Rogers Lai says. Watching from Namibia. That's where Alex is tuned in this morning. Hey. Okay. Edwin had sent another message. Hamjambo nyote. Nawapata vyema nikiwa Embakasi. Nawatakia wiki mjema nyote. Look, my Swahili while you're away, CT has improved.
Your Swahili was always good.
Victor Mar Siaya. Alego, Karapul, Siaya County, well represented as usual and addicted to the show. Alindi says, good morning. He's tuned in as well. Thanks you all for joining us and good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. CT Muga has the day's proverb.
Penye miti hakuna wajenzi.
Penye miti
hakuna wajenzi.
Okay.
Directly translated, where there are trees, there are no builders.
Okay.
Yeah. I see it.
You see it? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, builders prefer desert. Penye miti hakuna wajenzi. Sawa basi. Sawa. Let's look at the headlines in the papers. The Standard e-paper on as an app or www.standardmedia.co.ke. Get access to all this content wherever you are around the globe online.
Just in case you thought this whole issue with KEMSA was over, on the front page of the Standard, that story, which you can't ignore, former KEMSA boss has been blamed over the scandal. Investigation into how drug agency lost 8 billion shillings to COVID billionaires finds Manjari, who was CEO at the time, broke procurement rules. Looking at the story now, Investigations show that a number of irregularities happened in the procurement process. The Public Procurement Regulatory Authority, PPRA, had on July 23, 2020, received instructions from the Senate to conduct investigations into the procurement malpractices at KEMSA. The Senate Committee on Health, on issuing the directive, noted that it had learned of various allegations of procurement irregularities at KEMSA from financial years 2017-2018 to 2019-2020, which cost the firm about 7.8 billion shillings. The committee also took note of the concerns raised by counties and health workers' unions regarding the quality and cost of goods supplied by KEMSA in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic response, particularly personal protective equipment. The authority in their investigations noted that tender documents which were issued to bidders after issuing the commitment letters were not prepared in the right format as per the Act. The Act requires an accounting officer of the procuring entity to use standard procurement and asset disposal documents issued by the authority in all procurement and asset disposal proceedings. Suspended KEMSA CEO John Manjari was also faulted for issuing commitment letters without professional opinions from the head of the procurement function, which clearly was a requirement. So, according to the report in part, the decision by Dr. John Manjari Mwangi, the CEO, to issue commitment letters based on the letters referred to herein without professional opinion from the head of procurement function was in violation of Section 84 of the Act. It also noted that he violated Section 104 in issuing these letters. Some tenders were then terminated after negotiation and evaluation without evidence of the submission of the termination reports to the authority. And it requires all of these things to be done. And in the absence of such, since they were right under his purview, according to this report, he has been faulted. He broke the rules. And that is why we see the blood let of 7.8 billion shillings at KEMSA.
So he acted unprocedurally.
Apparently.
Outside of what has been set as the law. Does the law take care of, factor in an emergency? Because those are some of the issues that then would emerge. And I would have expected the PPRA to actually look at that and say, so how much time is required according to this law to go through this whole process? So you receive, before you issue a commitment letter, you need to get an opinion, professional opinion from the head of procurement. The head of procurement, what are they basing this on? So if you are in an emergency like what we saw
with COVID,
how much time is required to go through this entire process of even advertising tenders and all, and going through the issuing of commitment letters? Because here one of the things is you issued commitment letters before you had even announced. You didn't go through a proper procurement procedure. Does an emergency like what we had actually...
Whereby the country needed, at a really rapid rate, a lot of these, because the bone of contention here is the PPEs, right?
Yeah.
That's the major thing here.
Yeah.
And that awards were given to many companies to bring in PPEs, whether it was in the form of gloves, masks, or the full...
And they appear to have been
hazmat
given
suit.
haphazardly. So the CEO sits there and just writes a commitment letter. You bring,
because we need them quickly.
and
you submitted this, go.
Yeah, but also significantly, if you think about it, you cannot have this discussion unless you put into a time perspective, as we're saying. Because, in all honesty, at that particular point in time, remember, the whole world was scrambling for whatever was available on the planet to help ensure that their country was safe from the ravages of COVID, everyone.
Yeah.
And there was a long queue. So even getting the things that we are talking about, even that was a problem. And if you talk to people who are in procurement, they will tell you that the word on the ground was, if you can supply, please supply.
Just bring.
Yes. That was the word on the ground. You remove it out of context now, when that huge sense of emergency isn't there. It looks like you have some CEO who just went about some...
Woke up one morning and decided, you know what?
Yes.
Let's order some
Yeah.
100,000 PPEs this morning.
That
because
is
I have
not-
nothing else
The
to
law is a
do.
suggestion.
Yes, that is not what happened. No, that is not what happened.
I still think that, unfortunately, look, and I'm bold enough to say, I really do think this gentleman is being thrown under the bus, and there are very many other factors here that are not being considered in terms of then who was at fault.
Like even the board. I mean, why is the board not being cited
Yes,
here? So did
just
the board, had the board sat down and said, all right, CEO, go ahead and do this, this and the other?
Yeah.
Are we saying that he did not follow any instructions from the board? Come on.
Can't just be him, man.
It is not possible.
It's not possible. And that this entire bloodlet of 7.8 billion shillings rests entirely on his shoulders.
And then there's the discussion about what was in the budget, what was allowable,
Yes.
and what was exceeded. And you're telling me he, as an individual, one
Decided
person,
to exceed the
decided
budget.
Yes.
to exceed and then to give permission to all of these people then, who, by the way, till tomorrow have not been named.
Now let's look at it from the other side. What if John Manjari had said, no, we need to follow the law. No, this, we need to have a tender committee sitting to evaluate the bids.
Emergency or not, yes.
No, we
Then he
need
would
to
have
look at
started
it.
shouting at him and saying, hey,
This man is
people
killing
are
people.
dying. Yeah. You would have blamed him now for
Doomed.
something else.
If you do, doomed.
If you don't.
Don't. It's 6:30. Let's take a quick break, take a look at the traffic. We'll look at other headlines shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
ABSA was very responsive when COVID came about. And one of the things that we worked together on was for them to give us a facility to enable us buy materials in huger volumes than we were buying.
ABSA introduced a product to us known as the Trade Management Online. It's fast and it's safe. ABSA has helped us bring our possibilities to life, hence making us a home of quality.
It's building up on the Thika Superhighway this morning, getting into the city. We're seeing quite a lot of it around Pangani, at the underpass right there. It's connecting with what's coming off of Juja Road as well. Let's look in the western part of the city. Waiyaki Way quite packed today, all the way from Kangemi out towards Chiromo, moving very, very slowly. Huru Highway, as a connector to that, coming in from the city centre, not so bad, except you get to the junctions. Coming in from Valley Road, coming in from Gong Road, a little bit here and there. Not too crazy, but likely to be this Monday as things are getting back into the swing of things. Looking at Jogo Road, a little bit here and there. Landis as you get to the Kamkunji roundabout. Haile Selassie Avenue, not taking that much of a hit this morning, but likely to build up as we go along. What's happening on North Airport Road? Not much, looking pretty good. Use the Eastern Bypass with ease this morning. Mombasa Road also building up from the Weybridge, getting out towards the SGR. That construction slowing things down quite some. How about we take a look after 7 o'clock when things are really in the thick of it? Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's text on 40127. We're trying to keep things moving this morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
It's 26 minutes to 7. I
94.
have two stories about schools and education. Story number 1. State directs school heads to allow any disgruntled student to go home early. The government has issued fresh orders to school heads to be liberal and allow students to go home whenever they seek permission and only return when they are ready.
Read that again, please.
The government has issued fresh orders to school heads to be liberal and allow students to go home whenever they seek permission and only return whenever they are ready.
Okay, that's a reporting issue.
The government...
Basic Education PS Julius Johan said school heads should desist from restraining learners who want to go home as long as the process is done properly. This, he noted, will end unrest in schools. He was speaking at Nyambaria boys and Sironga girls in Nyamira County. The PS warned principals against disobeying the government directive to allow students to go home. Just allow any learner who wants to go home to leave the school and let no one bar them. Let them go home and burn their parents' houses, but not our schools.
This PS has no clue what he's talking about.
Why?
None whatsoever. Zero.
Why?
You want to pin an entire history of unrest in this country, which has culminated in the burning of this school that we are seeing. And of all the things he could talk about, he pinpoints the need to let children go home when they want to go home.
See, that was the pressure that even the school heads wrote to the government and said last year. These students are causing all this unrest because they want to go home.
The time is short.
Eric, that pressure was genuine. That pressure was justified because people are, if you just look at it as pressure was being brought to bear on the government and on the heads, and you forget that these students had been in school without any break. They were learning without any extracurricular activities. They didn't have opportunities to vent. The normal timetable that allows for sports and what have you was consumed by this need to ensure that some curriculum requirements were met.
Yep.
Now, the pressure was not being caused by students wanting to go home. The pressure was being caused by a chock-a-block system of education that required people to learn, and do nothing else.
Yes.
Yes. Now,
the situation has not changed.
My friend.
In 2022, we have how many academic years? 3 academic years this year. No, 2.
Eric, do you know where I'm going with this?
4 terms this year.
Do you know where I'm going with this?
Take me.
This nonsense of you must complete the curriculum, okay? You don't have to, okay?
So we do like Uganda.
You don't have to. The curriculum is intended to get you to learn certain things. These are unusual circumstances. Think and ask yourself, what is fundamental in this curriculum that people need to learn and understand?
So what you're saying is Dr. Julius Joan should basically be saying, let's relook at the curriculum for this.
Yes, let us relook at the way we are handling the school setup, and let us relook at this whole thing about learning and how best we can ensure that the students actually get the knowledge that they want, but we also enable them to grow and to also have air to breathe. Yes.
Dr. Joan is the immediate former director of KICD.
When you get to PS, you start making political statements like this one. Okay?
So basically what I'm trying to say is he's aware of, he developed a curriculum.
Which is why it's a bit scary
and
that he would
syllabus.
make a statement like this.
Eric, Eric, why do you think I'm coming out guns blazing?
It's
because
coming out of, probably he and the fellow experts in this field have looked and said, it's actually possible for us to continue with this and to deliver the curriculum and the syllabus as has been set.
Eric, if students want to go home and there's a plausible reason, they've always been allowed to go home if there's a plausible reason.
Yes.
It's not as though there has been this rule that students can't go home. They go home, even when it isn't half term. I'm coming out guns blazing because this is a very knowledgeable person. This is somebody who understands these things intimately. He even knows of the details of why it is we've had all these problems all along. If you're talking about research that has been done, findings that are there, this person is aware. You then come out with a one-liner like this one as a solution to the problems that we have. No. He should rethink before he utters the things he's uttering.
Probably just part of the solutions. Probably just parts. So he was in these schools in Nyamira County inspecting the ongoing construction of CBC classrooms in the 2 schools. He was accompanied by the county commissioner and the county director of education. He said the government is committed to promoting basic education and told off those criticizing the ongoing establishment of junior secondary school learning facilities in high school. He said the government is committed to achieving the CBC model of learning. That's why we have started the process of ensuring our institutions have such facilities for the betterment of our children who will be starting the CBC model of learning. There is no achievement that can be done without all of us joining hands for the better of our students. New classrooms are being built. Now, the other second story that I said I want to give you is related to the same. Remember Mashujaa Day? President Uhuru Kenyatta says 8 billion shillings going to construct 10,000 classrooms. New Year's Eve, President Uhuru Kenyatta says we are on course 10,000 classrooms are going to be delivered. CS Magoha says, we are building 5,000 classrooms by March, and that is on course. The government is on course to build 5,000 new classrooms by March to ease congestion in schools as it moves to roll out the CBC into junior secondary next year. The government will build half of the 10,000 classes it promised before the end of the 2021-2022 financial year to reduce the congestion in schools occasioned by the 100% transition policy. The 4 billion shillings of the 8 billion shillings that was pledged by the president has already been released, and classrooms are being built. And the ministry will also spend an additional 1.2 billion from its allocation to construct 1,600 extra classrooms. The CS Magoha was speaking at Kapsabet Boys in Nandi on Saturday when he commissioned the first phase of the new classrooms, which is to be completed by March to allow for the administration of national exams in primary and secondary schools. In my assessment, over the past 3 weeks, it's remarkably satisfying that all the schools earmarked to benefit from the expansion funds are continuing. The government is committed to ensure that all the children are accommodated within the learning premises. End of story.
You know, I'm a bit confused.
Why?
I'm confused because when I hear this litany of promises and huge amounts of monies, chunks of which have already been supposedly issued, I have to go back into history and ask, there was this small matter of desks. Were they ever all supplied, and were the suppliers all paid? Yes.
Are the desks still in use?
It's the desks.
I'm just asking because
it was supposed to be, what, 300,000 desks, right?
Many.
There were many. We are piling a promise on yet another promise about the things that ought to be done and can be done and should be done, and I'm getting a headache.
The CS has been inspecting, and he says
the CS
he's seeing the work that's going on.
Even previously,
Vitukwa ground.
Yes, even previously when we had precious talent, the catastrophe, the tragedy that visited them, and the flurry of activities that followed, with this same CS going around the country looking at institutions that required either demolishing or halting the processes of learning within them. We saw all those activities, and yet we know that the ministry has a unit that does precisely that. And they had 5 years prior talked about precious talent and said what needed to be done or which was not done. So I'm just asking, given this history that we have, where new projects are always coming up without an account of previous projects that were started, an account of whether they've been completed, at what stage they are at, where the deliverables are. That story, unfortunately, one doesn't hear or doesn't read about.
You know, CT, as you say that, and just last week, as we continue to talk about saying it's necessary to interrogate some of these things that we asked on or were told on a regular basis, that I'm going to do this. So the question then comes out that how are you going to do it? I think it is extremely important not just asking these questions when somebody comes and says that they would like to be considered for a particular office. But even when somebody comes and tells you, for example, that we're going to provide 300,000 desks around the country, we are going to build 5,000 classrooms, 10,000 classrooms around the country, and somebody says, I have been inspecting and I can see the progress is good. Where are these classrooms being built? In which counties? And how many per county? And how many have we seen completed? Because it's very easy to gloss over some of these matters, and then people are just going to take it at face value and say, oh, okay, since the CS says he has been inspecting, it must be true, right? It's important for us to ask, where? Which counties are going to get the bulk of these classrooms?
Yep.
What kind of classrooms are we looking at? Are we looking at 4 walls and then you fill in the rest? It's important to ask, because to ask after the fact, somewhere down the line, 2024, and say, oh, you said which ones, where were they? Wouldn't it be a little bit too late in the game to ask these questions? But now that he's saying he is inspecting, why are we not hearing the question? Where? How many? How many in Nairobi County? How many in Lamu County? How many in Marsabit County? How many schools are you putting around the country? But because they've said 10,000 schools, we say, very nice. Kenya, by the end of 2022, will have an extra 10,000 classrooms. And this problem of overcrowding in schools will come to an end. Hallelujah, amen.
As we go into double enrollment.
And enrollment.
This is going to be...
You know, all these things that we're talking about are logical, and believe me, a solution to them is not an impossibility. Eh?
No.
But the moment you politicize the situation, you start making utterances that you cannot actually justify. And then you want to ram it down our throats that we must just accept because you've said. Really? Really?
Hard small.
It's
7:15. A quick break and then we look at other headlines. Good morning.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say, I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislators are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi Lawokov?
I can't say it very well. No,
and everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room. The
13
only
to 7.
way to start your day.
The Business Daily.
Yes, the Business Daily has some good news. Okay. The good news is that KNH leads Parastatals in 20 billion pension debt. Let me explain what I mean. Kenya National Hospital, KNH, and public universities top the list of state corporations that have accumulated 20 billion Kenya shillings arrears in contributions to 1. Pensions, medical cover benefits, pointing to a deepening liquidity crisis. The largest referral hospital in East Africa, rather in the East African region, not just East Africa, had historical outstanding bills, historical indeed, amounting to 8.96 billion in unremitted pensions dues by the end of June 2021, according to latest disclosures. KNH was followed by cash-strapped public universities. You know, this is a race. KNH, number moja. Okay, number 2, 3, and so forth. Okay, cash-strapped public universities, university colleges whose social benefit arrears, largely pension and medical covers were estimated at 6.52 billion. You know, this is something that somebody has to explain to me. I find it puzzling. I find it puzzling because these remittances are deducted from
salaries.
Salaries paid. So if there is a lapse, and you can say that in the last 4 months, people have been paid a salary. If there are no remittances those 4 months, I can understand. But it gets complicated, and I think this complication is a little beyond my own capacity. So now, people have been paid all along. Deductions have been made all along. And yet, we've accumulated the 6. Eric, you're a person who understands magic. Explain this to her. Yes. How did this magic happen?
Well, these people being paid on time?
No.
Okay.
Not always.
So it's a cash flow issue. So by the time we're just looking at how much money do we need to send to CT's account, that's what we're looking for. We're not looking at how much money is, what is the gross salary? What is CT's gross salary? No. What is CT's net? How much needs to go to his account? These are asking NHIF, NSSF, pension deduction, I don't know, SACCO deduction, I don't know, there's a cologne somewhere. Those are sideshows. First of all, just to keep CT quiet, send money to his account.
You know.
So you find in very many cases, you do that the first month, you do that the second month.
Comes normal.
Accumulation. runs into hundreds of millions, kidogo, billions. Uh-huh.
But you see, Eric, at the end of the day, those deductions have been made.
Yes.
Where does that money go to?
There was no money in the first place.
Which money are you
I
talking about?
I am actually saying there was money. I'm actually saying there was money. The deductions are not made at some higher level. They're made at the university level because this is the employer.
Yes.
It's a college level.
Yes.
Okay? So, unless we're saying that the monies that they get minus the deductions, I think not. I think they get the monies in gross, as you were stating, and it is now their duty to ensure that certain remittances that are statutory are deducted. Yes. Now, I am asking the question. When these deductions have been made, where do they go to?
Indeed.
I am sure there's an explanation. I'm certain about that.
Yes.
Whether I will like it is not the issue here.
Whether it will make sense.
No, but I'm certain there is an explanation.
There must be.
Yes.
Indeed, there must be. While you're looking and waiting for that explanation, because, they've been made top of that list and we're just going to have to wait, see what the explanation will be, if there will be one given. Ministry delivers on Uhuru promise to cut power costs. Everybody went yay on Friday when we saw that. Reduction expected to lower cost of living and stimulate economic growth. Yay. President Uhuru Kenyatta has finally delivered on his pledge to reduce the cost of power after weeks of public pressure. Eric Latiff might disagree. Anyway, on Friday, the Ministry of Energy defied dimming public expectations to announce a 23% fall in electricity prices more than 2 weeks after the head of state's deadline. President Kenyatta, in his Jamhuri Day address, promised to lower electricity prices by a third, with the first half being achieved before Christmas Day and the other half before the first quarter of this year. However, Christmas came and went, and so did the first day of the year. On social media, Kenyans got busy making memes and lamenting how the promise of cheaper power had become one of the many Jubilee government promises that were never fulfilled. With each passing day, it increasingly looked like the president was inevitably going to end up with egg on his face as electricity prices went up instead of down, as he had promised. And then, voila, Friday, January 7th, boom, boom, boom. Literally, the Energy Ministry unexpectedly announced that power prices had finally been lowered for a year following publication of a special Gazette notice. Note, a year. This came after a reluctant tariff review by the Kenya Power and approval by the energy regulator. So, price reduction of 23%. Clap, clap, clap. The tariff reduction is a fulfillment of his commitment made by His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta to the nation on Jamhuri Day 2021 that the first 15% reduction in the cost of power will be reflected in bills covering end of year 2021. This reduction, coming in January, will boost livelihoods and economic growth by reducing the cost of living, put more money in Kenyans' pockets, and reduce the cost of doing business.
Listen.
Why are you in a hurry now? What's wrong?
Listen. So, EPRA gazetted these new tariffs, okay, on Friday. They are effective 1st of January. Sawa? Which means they reflect on your bills at the end of January.
Yes.
What was the president's promise?
He said that by the end of December 2021, you would see. Okay, how many promises are we talking about here?
We are talking about the latest promise by the
the
president,
latest
from
one,
the president's mouth.
Okay, the latest promise then was that by December 2021, you would get a 15% reduction. And then by the end of the first quarter 2022, you would get the other 15%, making it a total of 30%. The other 3% is some, lost in translation.
You see the thing that we're talking about, that mediocrity that we have, eh?
Yeah.
Just because, see, I've given you. I promise I'm going to give you. See, I've given you, so you relax.
What's the problem?
What's the problem?
And then I removed 3%. What's wrong? It's still 30.
That's where we are at right now. Okay? The president spoke on Jamhuri Day and said, in 15 days or so, this whole thing will be complete and your December bills will reflect a 15% reduction. December bills did not reflect a 15% reduction. This thing that EPRA and Kenya Power did, they could have done. They didn't. They didn't. They've done it now. Are they responding to pressure? Is it because they realize, okay, all those things that we have talked about, cutting losses or, reducing the losses in Kenya Power are actually impossible. And so they've come up with just like a small thing here to say, let's reduce the tariff for 1 year, and then we shall come back. We're being played here.
And it's just going to be
Number
for a
one,
year.
the energy ministry was up there tweeting, the state house was up there tweeting, president has delivered his promise. He has not.
And was there a caveat in terms of timing? Because, this
Of
is the
course
thing.
there was.
But listen, hold on.
Uh-huh.
Kenyans did not hear this. Kenyans did not see this. Once you hear reduction of power, in the minds of many a people, it is a permanent thing.
It is, Ndu, but
Yes.
you know what Eric is saying? And something that in my mind is actually very fundamental is we are slowly being conditioned to accept untruths. We are slowly being conditioned to be able to be happy with crumbs.
The leg of the chicken, whereby the...
No, the claws, not the leg.
claws, where you could have gotten
Claws.
the thick thigh.
Yes. And as Martha Karua told us, it's actually your chicken.
It's yours, indeed.
Yes. This point that Eric is making is a valid one because no one asked the president to name the date. We didn't
Nobody asked him to make the promise.
We did not ask for the timeline. He made the timeline. Now, if he was advised about that timeline and there was a change, we've said this before. Why don't you come and say, folks?
Yep.
We had planned
We
this, it
said
wasn't
this.
possible.
Please, sorry.
Hi, God.
Very sorry indeed. In fact, extra sorry. We cannot do this. Let's get to the new year. We'll give you a new schedule. Yes, we will. There'll be a hue and cry, but you have told us.
Yes.
I've told you.
That is how you deal honestly with your people.
But isn't that how you deal one to the other, CT? It's just the same thing. Human nature begs that you do just that. In the event that I said something to you and I was not able to do it, decent behavior begs that I come and I say, CT, actually, you know what? This is what I had planned. It didn't work out for 1, 2, 3. How about we give it a little bit more time? Kindly. But then you're just going to assume that, they'll understand. After all, I'm giving it to you, am I not? So why are you making noise?
What's the problem?
Same thing that we talked about these projects that supposedly happen around the country. I said I was going to build a road, but I've put Maram. What's wrong?
What's
See,
the
you can
issue?
move from point A to point B. What's wrong? There was nothing there before. See, now you can move. Why are you making noise?
See, for me, where the big problem is, you introduce a narrative and a perspective who, when full blown, will really genuinely come back to bite you. Remember Aesop's fables, the boy who cried wolf? So even when there's something genuine and positive that you want to say, it is treated with the same disdain. Say, yet another
Yes,
story.
and one of those.
Yes.
This one is, it's a 1 year gazette. It's in effect for a year.
Yes.
Okay.
But Eric, I actually think...
There's nothing that
Yes, go ahead.
stops the same IPRA from coming to us in September
I'm
and
saying we
reversing
can't do
this.
this anymore. They won't
Nothing.
even tell you. You'll just see numbers changing.
It's just reversing on a gazette notice, reversing these tariffs with Kenya Power. Nothing stops them.
Nothing.
So this is not, we were promised something that is supposed to be a longer lasting solution to the power issue. Task force report, task force this and the other, blah, 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 blah. It was going to be by December, we're going to have a 30% reduction. Oh no, December, the president comes. By the way, I'm keeping the promise. Now the promise is not December, it's by March. But the first one is 15% by end of this month. End of the month comes, it doesn't happen. And then 7 days into the year, it happens and he's all over social media saying, you know what? I have delivered my promise. Mr. President, no, you haven't. No. This is not what you said, and this is not what... Come out and say, there was a delay, but finally we are on course. In December, he came and gaslit us. Like, no, I had promised, but, we're still on course. Now he still wants to do the same thing. Apana.
And you're awake with both eyes open.
No. Well, keep it right here for more conversations. In the next hour, let's talk about hate speech. This is campaign season. Okay? We have a commissioner from the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, Dr. Danvers Makori, joining us to talk about this. A very good morning to you. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Choose your preferred driver, mode of transport, and negotiate your fare to your destination for a safe, comfortable, and affordable trip only with InDriver.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. The Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission has announced the last phase of mass voter registration before the 2022 general elections. IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati, who chaired a 3-day strategy meeting on election preparedness in Naivasha, said the commission will go out of its way to ensure at least 25 million voters participate in the August 9 polls. The registration of new eligible voters will kick off on January 17th and continue to February 6, 2022. The commission targets 4.5 million new eligible voters in the 3-week exercise and anticipates 25.6 million voters will take part in the August 9 polls. In the last phase, IEBC registered 1.5 million new voters against a target of 6 million. Now, Orange Democratic Movement Party leader Raila Odinga has castigated the contentious remarks Meru Senator Mithika Linturi made at a Saturday rally in Eldoret. Speaking in Kiambu County, Odinga said that every Kenyan has the right to live freely anywhere in the country. The August presidential hopeful was speaking after a visit to honor mothers of political prisoners, including his own, who died while he was under political detention. He said should he get to be president, his government will see to it that mothers of political prisoners get housing and state recognition. Now, Amani National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi has appealed to Kenyans to refrain from utterances that are likely to cause tension as the country readies itself for the August 9th general election. Mudavadi said leaders who make controversial statements whenever they see crowds should be careful because the 2007-2008 post-election violence in which 1,000 were killed and thousands displaced began in similar fashion. His sentiments come in the wake of fury over Meru Senator Mithika Linturi's remarks during a UDA rally in Eldoret. Meanwhile, Meru Senator Mithika Linturi was brought to Nairobi after recording a statement in Nakuru over alleged incitement made in Eldoret over the weekend. He was arrested in an Eldoret hotel Sunday morning following a directive by Director of Public Prosecutions Nuruddin Haji to the Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai. According to the DPP, Linturi's utterances could incite contempt, hatred, hostility, violence or discrimination. Muthui is expected to be arraigned in court today. Deputy President William Ruto is once again exuding confidence that he will trounce his rivals and emerge victorious in the August 9th general elections. The DP, who was on a tour of Kuria in Migori County, indicated that there were plans to rig the presidential poll in favor of his rivals, but warned that such plans will not see the light of day. Ruto claims that his opponents do not have a solid plan on how to win the eagerly awaited poll. He says they have instead resorted to propaganda. According to Ruto, his political rivals are misguided if indeed they are banking on altering of the election outcome. He insists that Kenyans will decide who the next president will be. And Environment Cabinet Secretary Keriako Tobigo is on a warpath with Deputy President William Ruto, this time accusing the country's second-in-command of using family ties for his own political gain. This comes after the CS's sister Kajiado East MP Paris Tobiko claimed to have visited DP Ruto to apologize on his behalf over past remarks in which he referred to the DP as a mere clerk. The CS has, however, denied sending the AMP to tender an apology to the DP on his remarks, maintaining that he stands by his words. According to the Environment CS, he has nothing to apologize to the DP for, further claiming that Ruto has now resorted to cheap politics of using family members against their own kin. And a miner who was trapped at Kapodho gold mine in North Kamagambo ward in Rongo collapsed has been rescued alive 3 days later. Noah Okweno was trapped when the walls of the mine caved in while on a mining expedition alone. It took efforts from local politician Paul Abur and Rongo Deputy County Commissioner Joseph Ngeny and the locals to successfully get the miner out of the cave. Abur said the rescue team managed to get the miner out of the collapsed gold mine alive. This as the family of Tom Okwach in Abimbo continues to hope that the body of their loved one will be retrieved. Tom Okwach was trapped in the gold mines after the shafts collapsed 36 days ago. The county government now says that they have set aside a budget that will go into the rescue operation. To sport in, Cameroon came from behind to beat Burkina Faso 2-1 in an incident packed opener at the Africa Cup of Nations. An acrobatic volley from Gustavo Sangare put the Burkinab ahead midway through the first half in Yaoundé, but two unerring penalties from captain Vincent Abubakar turned the game around for the host before halftime. Indomitable Lions keeper Andre Onana made two crucial second half saves as Tony Gonsiako's side opened their Group A campaign with victory. A Cape Verde side hit by COVID-19 cases saw off 10-man Ethiopia 1-0. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Download the InDriver app from the App Store or Google Play Store to enjoy a safe, comfortable, and affordable ride around Nairobi.
Spice FM. Nakuru.
All right, Monday morning, it's a few minutes after 7 o'clock. What are we looking at on the ground, literally, today is that traffic has built up in most parts of the city and it is not forgiving. Looking at Mombasa Road today, all the way beyond Sabaki and then heading out towards the SGR, very, very slow movement there. We're looking at, so North Airport Road has already piled up some as well. Coming off Langata Road, very slow. We've had 2 weeks of reprieve and then she shocks you. Back into it, guys. Going towards the Timor roundabout, out towards Rilo Dingaway, dot of traffic as you head then towards Gong Road at the City Mortuary roundabout. Also looking at traffic coming off of Industrial Area now, and that's quite packed. Manyanja Road is feeding off onto Jogo Road and Lunga Lunga and Enterprise Road, thicker superhighway all the way from the drive-in out towards Pangani. Very slow movement there. In and outbound traffic on Limuru Road. Wayaki Way is a thing. My goodness, everywhere you look, there's traffic this morning. So, help us out here, folks. Where do you see a good reprieve that we could use this morning? Let us know. Talk to us about where you find accidents or incidents. Hope that doesn't happen. If you're stuck somewhere, let us know that as well. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127. It's a crazy morning. Let's keep things moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
A very good morning to you. How are you doing on the 10th day of January 2022, Kenya's biggest conversation and the first day of the year for City Muga? The day's proverb?
Penye miti hakuna wajenzi.
Penye miti hakuna wajenzi. Okay. So they haven't discovered, they haven't come in yet to start cutting the trees to build whatever they want to build.
Actually, you've gotten to the heart of the matter. Wood is derived from trees. Simple enough statement, straightforward. So if you have an abundance of trees, clearly, it means there's no one disturbing them.
The light's on, isn't it?
Abundance of trees means
someone isn't disturbing them. That's why you find them in abundance.
Nobody chopping the trees.
No, they aren't there. And people chop them because there's use for them. There's a commercial element to it. Some of it may be domestic. Because simply using firewood for domestic purposes cannot decimate a forest. However, when you then put a commercial element to it where you want to use it for building, you want to use it for all sorts of things, then that particular forest is endangered. Yes.
Or on the other side of things, if you're enjoying this forest and enjoying all the good things that come with it, like the fresh air, it simply means that nobody's cutting the trees down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know how we're going to twist this into fit into the conversation we're about to have.
Probably by the end of things.
If there's no hate speech in the country, there are no politicians.
Actually, the problem. Yes, you say
it's negative. If there is peace in the country,
there are no politicians.
There's no hate speech.
It justifies the means with Eric here. Eric is going in one direction.
For
if
me,
you can't see,
the Mujenzi is a politician.
I know what he's trying to go.
There's one outcome here.
The problem really here isn't the politicians.
Yeah.
No, it isn't even the utterances. No. Like in many situations, we end up focusing on a consequence and dealing with it and talking about it instead of asking ourselves what it is that has brought it about. And why it is that, for instance, in the case that we're about to discuss, the discussion around it has become so heated. Yes. It's because we understand and we know. Very simply.
True. Our guest for this hour is Dr. Danvas Makori. He is a commissioner with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, and this is the NCIC, the Hate Speech Commission. Anti-Hate Speech Commission. Okay, we don't call it Anti-Fire Brigade.
Call it Fire Brigade.
Yeah.
Like we don't talk about the anti-riot police. We call them a riot police. Yes.
Yeah. We know what happened at the Eldoret rally on Friday. Then we have seen, of course, action being taken with the arrest of the Senator for Meru, Mithika Linturi. There's another story in the paper, and this is about Isiolo. The National Cohesion and Integration Commission is set to question the county's Somali Council of Elders chairman, Sharif Abdullahi, over alleged inflammatory remarks against non-Muslims. According to a source, Abdullahi was earlier this week interrogated by Isiolo-based detectives for ethnic and religious profiling remarks that he made at a recent Borana Elders meeting in Garbatula. So this is not just at that level. It's at very many levels. As we head towards elections, we have very many of these things that we'll be discussing this morning. Dr. Makori, good morning.
Morning, Eric. Morning.
Good to have you on the show again.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure.
Okay.
Let me say hi to City. Morning, City.
Morning, brother.
Morning, morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you, and it's good to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
Again.
Yes. So, this year, your work gets a notch busier because of monitoring hate speech, and we've had this conversation before. What is hate speech? Okay, maybe we can just go back into what does the law define as hate speech or inflammatory utterances?
I think before we go to that definition, I think the Constitution is clear because the definition is set in the context of the Constitution. Article 4 talks about free speech. And we have a liberty in this country, of course, to say what we need to say, what we should say. That's why we are here. That's why you do what you do. Then it limits it. There's a limit to it. It's not carte blanche, okay? And it's very clear. And the three things are limited to it, okay? And it's incitement to violence, propaganda to war, and hate speech. It's very clear on that. So that's the basis of departure. So that you're free to say what you can say, unless you're doing this. Now, in our article of NCIC Act 2008, it defines what hate speech is. It's actually vilification, ethnic vilification of any ethnic here, even in our new amendment, is any people group that you vilify, okay? An individual or people group that you vilify by words or utterances. So that's where it comes. It's basically the vilification of a people group. That's what our act defines as a hate speech. And it's very clear based on our act what it is. And sometimes for us, just because I know that's where we're gonna go in the next discussion. Prior to the act when it was in 2008, it did not encompass, for lack of a better word, it didn't encompass what we saw yesterday. And learning from Rwanda, we inserted another clause, an amendment, which includes even coded language. Because in Rwanda, it was cockroaches and trees.
Yes.
Trees. You talked about trees today, city today. Okay, it was trees. Tall trees need to be cut down.
Well, there you go.
See? So we've included that in coded language. If you use coded language to vilify a specific people group, that is still hate speech. Because you can get it, or you can always justify where I meant trees. No, you meant this.
Yes.
But now we'll use that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's clear in terms of what it means.
Yes.
And what you cannot say. And then, just as you're saying now, along lines, you realize that certain things then were not included in definitions or descriptions. And so then you came in and then had added clauses.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's clear in terms of what you cannot say.
Absolutely.
In public or otherwise.
Yeah.
Is it just as clear then what happens to you should you then engage in this kind of practice?
Oh, yes, it is. Our act says that if you are convicted, go through the court process, due process is done, you're convicted. There is 5 years or minimum of 1 million you ought to pay. So it's very clear if you engage in hate speech. But I think, first of all, in our act is very clear in terms of the punishment that you incur. So it's actually clear. I think towards the last part of our act, it lists down everything that you incur when you engage in hate speech or incitement. It's actually very clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the sticky things, though, however, is that I think along the lines in courts, we've heard that it's very difficult to prove or disprove intent. Right? And this is what you're saying, that if you are then convicted, this and this may happen. These are the penalties that you ought to pay, or the time that you will now spend, as a guest of the state, etc. Okay? But now, we've had, and this has been said over and over and over again, Rwanda was an extreme, representation of the fact that you said something, and as a result of you saying something, somebody else then picked up with requisite action, right? Or following action. Now, before that action or any kind of danger can take place and then come into place, somebody then is able to rebuttal and say really quickly, well, that's not what I meant. This is actually what I meant. But unfortunately, the seed has already been planted in the minds of many people. Even though they don't take any action, the seed is resident in their minds. And this, I think, is that place where we are dangerously playing right now. That anybody can say what it is that they want and then quickly pull back on it and say, actually, you know what? That is not what I meant. How do we deal with this very difficult situation?
Actually, that's very true. We sat down with a number of experts, especially on this matter, lawyers, that is, and on the issue of incitement. Because even in our country, proving incitement is extremely difficult. Threshold is quite high. Now, we had to have a global look at this and say, okay, where can we look at and where can we learn from and implement this? Now, one of the courts in Canada really defined, and we got that definition now and borrowed it, what incitement is. And to paraphrase it, and to give an example, actually, the best example is this. If I say, Eric, CT yesterday said X, Y, and Z about you, was gossiping about you, and this is what he said, and he doesn't like you, he's not your friend, and as a matter of fact, he did X, Y, and Z.
He's planning to kill you.
Yes. Now, Eric gets all angry, upset, goes and punches CT.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, that is a classic definition of incitement. Incitement is defined as when words that are spoken elicit a direct response consequent of those words. So it can be proven. If I did not say that, you didn't have punched CT.
Right.
You understand? So I cannot pull back and say, well, my intention was not for Eric to punch CT. Eric just went and punched CT's own volition.
I was just alerting him.
Yeah.
To watch his back.
It is what I said that caused him to go and punch what? CT.
Yeah.
So because of that, that's what we adopted. Now, to take it a step further, we, even in our country, we had a meeting not so long ago with the Chief Justice and her team. And in the next, I think, 1 month, actually, about 2 months now, we'll gazette, the judiciary will gazette 5 courts, specifically to cater and handle hate speech. Because realize also and we're also working with there's a multi-agency we've set up with the DPP, because even in the prosecution part, for them to understand really our act and these things that what you raised, which is pertinent. And the judges to understand that this is very different, because it can be very ambiguous, because they use the same principle on a criminal code, especially on matters of hate speech, and the threshold is quite high. So we're coming together and say, guys, this is very different, because then you can hide, you can deny words. You can say, well, I didn't mean it, I didn't see it. So because of that, the judiciary is specifying 5 courts in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Eldoret, and Nakuru. They'll be gazetted soon to specifically handle hate speech. Number 1, we'll be specialized in what you said right now. Number 2, to fast track these cases, because the challenge we have is the process, the criminal process is about 5 years by the time a case is had and determined. So that within 6 months, we are trying to negotiate with them 6 months. A case like this is had and determined, so that these individuals are barred from ever running for office again.
You know, there's a narrative that took root in this country, and it morphed into, or it got manifested in very many ways. And a lot of it began in the Moi era. It began with what were referred to as tribal clashes. Communities that had lived side by side for the longest time had issues every once in a while, problems here and there, but the tempo was never raised to the point where people were actually killing each other. And people gave explanations for it. But if you look at the conversations that took place that brought that about, you would find specific communities being pointed to and being labeled as the cause of the problems that the other communities had, especially the community among whom they were living. This was prevalent in the Rift Valley. The problems that we saw at the coast that brought about the Kayabombo and that later brought Pwani, Kenya, same story. The narrative that you have a problem and the problem is this group of people who are responsible for it. And then with the dog whistle communication, it gets subterranean, and then it becomes an issue of this is ours because it's in our geographical area. We saw it playing out at Moi University. It is our university. It's not a national university. And so our person must be employed because this is our university. Now, we want to deal with these issues when they're fully blown, when someone like the Senator for Meru utters what he has uttered, knowing full well what it means. No excuse. You can dance around it as much as you like. This is a seasoned politician. This is an educated man. He knows and understands exactly what he was saying. It's the consequences that are now hitting him, so he's retracting and finding colorful language to explain it. He knows what he's saying. How do you deal with an issue whose genesis is not difficult to understand, whose consequences are obvious, and throughout the year we see it building up? In small little matters. I don't see your commission clamping on it. I don't see you jumping feet first and saying, excuse me,
this can't be.
This is what leads to this. And we are not going to allow this to happen. We wait until one clan has gone and killed 10 people, the other one has retaliated and killed 12 people.
And call a peace meeting.
Then. And yet, we know exactly.
You heard the rumblings.
Yes. I'm not going to go to the extent of saying you even know the perpetrators. No. But you do.
So you're saying NCIC is too slow to act?
I'm saying NCIC is toothless.
CT.
Yes.
CT is a very extremely smart fellow, and I hear you. Now, let me say this. To answer you extensively, Eric, permit me to answer this extensively, because we are always accused of that, and I'm glad you brought it up. So you permit me, oblige me, just for a few minutes, to extensively respond to that. Okay. In this sense, in 2019 December, we launched what we call a roadmap to peaceful election bill and normal. Okay. We launched it. It's a roadmap. I won't call it an invention. It's a roadmap, and after studying extensively, because that's part of our mandate, what causes violence, electoral violence in this case, there are 6 factors, and I'll just name the first 3 to respond to you. okay, and in conversation we're having. Number one is lack of trust, okay? Lack of trust between communities, between state and communities. That is the number one. People just don't trust the government. People don't trust government institutions like us, that you said, okay? And we did a cohesion index. And I'd like you to actually look at that cohesion index. You're a researcher. It was well-researched document, brilliant document. I think it was the first one in Africa, cohesion index, to look at the cohesion state in our country. And there is an extreme high level of lack of trust between communities, as you said, okay? And between state and the people. Root cause number one. We'll talk about root causes because it's talking about root causes and our intervention for that. Number two was a subculture of violence. Whereas for a long time, opposition, either individually or collectively, is expressed in violence. Okay? Rather than me saying, okay, I don't like this, or arguing my case, the best way to express dissent, for that better word, is through what? Violence. Dissent is expressed through violence for a long time. Number three, okay, is selfish politicians. Okay?
Is there another kind?
Well, they're not altruistic, all of them, but not all politicians are selfish. Vis-a-vis selfish here, vis-a-vis self-interest versus national interest. Okay? Let me define that. Thank you, CT, for bringing that. Defining selfish politician is one who places self-interest in front of what?
Above
of
national
community and
national interest. Okay? And the fourth one, for lack of time, is ethnicity, negative ethnicity, or ethnic politicization, balkanization. Now, it's an extension of what we say. So they use all these elements to ethnicize our politics. Politics is mobilized through, for the longest time. Actually, this is the first time we're seeing in our country where the mobilization of politics isn't so much ethnic. Now it's issue-based. It's other issues apart from the previous what we were saying. And I think it's a good thing to an extent. Now, to answer you, let me school you just in a couple of things. We have 17 mandates in our act, according to the law. Okay, one of them is just hate speech. Out of 17, it's hate speech. Okay, now, see what I just listed, all of them. Now, we've spent, Eric, a lot of time in Rift Valley. When we first assumed office 2 years ago, we had a strategy. I advised my colleagues of a strategy. I call it the Samson strategy. Okay, Samson realized he has limited resource. His last act, he has limited resource. Okay? So he talked to this young boy, says, you know what, take me to the two pillars that hold this temple. Okay, the Samson strategy. He realized he can't do all this, so he went to the two pillars. Yes, couldn't see, number one. Number two, given what he had facing, he had to be very focused. So he went to the two pillars of the temple, and we know what happened. He pushed the pillars, the whole thing collapsed. On the Philistines, 3,000 people died. And to us, and to me, to the two pillars that hold this country together when it comes to election violence is Nakuru and Uasin Gishu. If those two counties hold together, the country will hold together. If they don't hold together, this country ain't gonna hold together from a election violence perspective. So we said we'll focus the resources on that. And we spent a lot of time in these two counties, in Joro, in Moro, in Eldoret. I've been there so many times. I'm about to get a house there in Eldoret.
That's right.
Yeah, that's how much time we spent there to build resilience. You understand? Because based on the challenges we had that caused violence, we had strategic interventions and transformative actions, so that when people like Senator Linturi says what he says, is resilience within the community, so that they don't act or do or incited and follow-up action on what they do.
Why are these two places? What's unique about them?
What's unique about them?
Nakuru and Uasin Gishu.
Well, Nakuru, we know it's a metro area, but where a lot of communities have come together. Traditionally, it wasn't that so, but many communities have come upon there, especially of the Kikuyu community. The same thing in Eldoret. It was predominantly for the longest time our Kalenjin area, and then many communities have come together because it's one of the metro areas, of course, we have in our country. Land. also. Is a big aspect towards it.
Okay.
Yes.
So, after spending all the time
Yes.
there and looking at these are the two pillars.
Yes.
We make sure that we reinforce these two pillars so nobody comes to shake this building and bring it down.
Yeah.
We still see incidences of hate speech coming from leaders from that region. This is not a leader from the region. This is a leader who came from a different region and went and made these statements in that region. We have seen accusations and counter-accusations. Even now, somebody is posting Boyd Barsite saying there's a former Molo MP who has uttered inflammatory remarks just recently. This is in the region. And we don't see any kind of action, we don't see sufficient teeth biting such leaders. So what work have you been doing after all has been said and done?
That's what I was saying. Given the four challenges I've listed, given our mandate, first of all, is to understand that it's easy to respond. What if there's the enforcement aspect of it, yes, but that's reaction, okay? And let's say we just arrested, Muthui was arrested yesterday, okay?
Yeah.
But the damage is already done. The words are already gone out of his mouth, okay? And if you don't have mechanisms to be able to withstand that and hold that, then no matter how much you enforce, okay, it will still not make a difference because people can be incited, people will cause violence, people will destroy property, people will kill each other. I saw a clip yesterday, and I'm able to verify from a legal perspective of an aspirant saying when he came back to his house was burnt down. I saw that clip. It was one of the major media houses actually circulating that clip. So we authenticate that clip. That clip. Sorry. So now, you see, for us, the intervention is very important. So that if the community is resilient, if you build people to an extent where they will be, people are empowered, educated enough, if they're civic educated enough, no matter who says what, okay, they will not respond, no react to that. Now we can now focus on that. Now, in the issue of enforcement. That is exactly why we had to set up a multi-agency task force. Is because the process of if CT today is inside, I start investigation. I take the file to the DPP. The DPP says, well,
nothing strong.
This is not strong enough. Go back again. Do more investigation. We get more evidence. Back to the back and forth. Sometimes I can tell you, we have files that take sometimes even a year. The back and forth. So we said this is ridiculous. We can't. And it's not that. They're doing their job, but also there's so many files they have to handle too. So by the time you give them, there's a backlog before they get to your file. The same thing with judiciary. By the time you take a case, there's a backlog. Like his case his case is being handled today. I can tell you for a fact there's so many cases ahead of him. By the time it's determined, that's going to take 5 years. So we said we can't afford that. So rather than whine and complain, we said let's come together. How can we have a strategic intervention so that we can resolve this issue? So we have a special team, the DCI, the ACC, the judiciary, the DPP, so that now the enforcement mechanism is strong enough, quick enough, efficient enough, so that it's a deterrent for politicians not to do that again.
Let's take a break. It's 27 minutes to 8. Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. We are talking about curbing hate speech in this election year. And with us in the studio is the Commissioner with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, Dr. Danvas Makori. Keep it right here for more coming up shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
I hope you don't believe that Hustler is a poor person. Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
The group of leaders we are having now, Kenyans, listen, the chemical composition is the same. You will mold them to ODM, then NASA, you mold them to Kano, mold them to Jubilee, mold them to any other different color sometimes, but the chemical composition is the same.
It's not about me as Nurdin Haji, but it's about the constitution that I swore to protect. So when individuals attempt to hoard those powers and they want to be investigators and also prosecutors, then of course I have to defend that position because that position is in the constitution and that's what Kenyans wanted.
I'll tell you what happens is that when you ignore court orders, you're creating and quoting anarchy. Then you create a very dangerous precedent.
A story is told of the first president of the country who also went to visit Mathare, presidential tour. Yeah? And of course, he went to this place and he introduced himself. So one of the enemy says, oh, hata wewe kuna jina kama yangu.
The Situation Room. Kenya's biggest
The sun's coming out through those clouds in
conversation.
Nairobi at 16, highs of 26 today. 13 degrees and sunny conditions in Nakuru, highs of 28 and lows of 11. We'll see lows of 10 in Nyeri, where it's sunny at 12 and going to highs of 25. Eldoret, sunny at 15, highs of 26 and lows of 13. Looking at partly sunny conditions in Mombasa at 26, highs of 32 today. And in Malindi, it's partly sunny at 26. We'll see highs of 31. Kisumu is sunny at 20, highs of 32 and lows of 19. While in Kakamega, it's sunny at 20, highs of 33 today and lows of 15. Out in Kampala, it's sunny at 20, highs of 29, lows of 18. While Dar es Salaam is cloudy at 28, it'll go to highs of 32 and lows of 27. Lagos, clear conditions at 25, highs of 33 today, will be quite warm as well. 15 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg. Going to highs of 25, we'll see lows of 13. It's mostly cloudy in Kinshasa at 24, that'll be today's low, going to highs of 31.
Spice and everything nice, everything nice.
Spice up your life.
Nakuru Road is doing a number on folks this morning. Quite a lot of traffic there, and it's coming off the southern bypass, quite hot and heavy, all the way through to the roundabout at the T-Mall, spilling over traffic onto Raila Odinga Way and further down Langata Road. We're looking at Uhuru Highway clogging up a little bit right after Bellevue, and then going all the way to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, further down all the way into the city at Haile Selassie Avenue this morning. Gong Road also quite hot and heavy to the roundabout as we're looking at it coming off City Mortuary. Looking messy all the way into Westlands and into the CBD this morning. Quite heavy. Jogo Road started early, it's still a thing. And Thika Road this week has decided that where you did not see traffic over the last 2 weeks, you will see it properly. Okay, let's keep an eye on things, folks. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done
It's
right.
23 minutes to 8.
94.4 Spice
This
FM.
is the Situation Room on Spice FM, and also live streaming the show on Facebook and YouTube, Spice FM. We have with us in the studio Dr. Danvas Makori, Commissioner with NCIC, and before we took a break, CT was just about to ask you a question.
You see, if we do not speak truth to the situation that we find ourselves in, it doesn't matter what high-fangled, multicolored, kaleidoscopic solution we come up with, it will bear no fruit. The narrative that we are talking about and why it's raising such a heated discussion is because it is an anti-Kikuyu narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Other communities that live in the Rift Valley now become collateral damage. Whether you are Luhya, you are Kisii, you are Luo, collateral.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is a narrative that has been encouraged. It has a narrative that politicians have benefited from. It's a narrative that has acquired dog whistle status, so you don't hear it being spoken out in the open, but it's always there. Now, if we don't address it and call it what it is and call it by name, then we will not be able to deal with it. We saw the same problem in Maasai land. What we are hearing coming out of Isiolo and coming out of these places, it's not any different. You profile a community and you decide. And so the conversation that now takes place is anti this particular community. From 1992, 1997, until the entire situation exploded in 2007, 2008, that conversation had been taking place. And politicians had been fanning it and fanning it and fanning it and fanning it. We have an election now. And someone from the Rift Valley wants to be president. That thing is being fanned more than it has ever been fanned before.
I think so.
I know so. So, when we talk about solutions, what you've suggested are excellent. But this isn't one of those situations where we pussyfoot and we sort of like tread gently. No. When you have ample evidence to take someone to court, man, the book should be thrown at these people as much as you possibly can, because a repeat of 2007, 2008 is imminent. It's not something that is far-flung and it's far away. No, it is not. It is not. Talk to people who live on the borders and ask them what is happening, and they will tell you. The hostilities never really end. They just sort of like go down, waiting to rear their heads again. Yes. And all they require are political statements such as the one that Linturi made. But Linturi, unfortunately, is going to bear the brunt for things that other people have been doing quietly before he made his utterances. Is the NCIC going to face this thing head on, call it what it is, and deal with it exactly for what it is?
As a joinder to that, Doc, does the NCIC have the capacity to deal with the potential dangers that we're talking about? Because if we're going to be sober-minded and call it for what it is, we're going to call it for what it is, we're staring danger in the face. We are staring it in the face, and it's very possible for these things to happen, just like CT has said. Just because somebody has said it out in the open now, it makes it a little bit more real of what the situation on the ground is. Because if it takes the utterances of somebody to spark something like this, what do you think they've been thinking and considering all this time? So, do you as a commission have the capacity to deal with the potential danger that we are looking at here, beside, warning?
I think this show should be called the Truth Commission. Because we're about to speak the truth. So, this is the Truth Commission. Okay? And I'm going to be very truthful to respond to those answers and very truthful. City, let me just be very frank here. This nation, has never healed genuinely from the 2000-2008 violence. We've never had a healing process. We've swept it under the rug and covered it and kept quiet about it and assumed everything is fine. We've never gone through a reconciliation and a healing process as a country. Genuine reconciliation. We've not done that. And that always has serious consequences later. It's a wound that is there, but it's not there. It's festering under, but you've covered it. One day, one time, it will blow up until we have a genuine reconciliation. That's the truth. This nation has we never had that conversation you're talking about and talk about these issues face to face. Now, I'll pivot to a question so that I can come back to the response. Do we have the capacity? We are building capacity. I'm going to give you status as it is. I think the only commission does not have regional offices. Our headquarters is right here in Nairobi, Brigham Towers, Upper Hill. And understanding and appreciating the challenge we're facing as a country, we purposed to make sure before the elections start that we have regional offices and we have boots on the ground. Boots here, to be precise, so that I'm not accused of anything again, is peacemakers, people on the ground. Okay? Because we parachute, whenever there's a conflict, there's a flare up, we parachute. Okay? The issue with Capedo, yeah, we are.
And then you leave.
And then we leave. And you cannot sustain it. That's not sustainable. So then that's been the challenge in the past.
So what do you need in order for you to have regional offices?
Money. It's money. And in the current financial year, this budget, we submitted the request and the requirements. And we need at least minimum 10 regional offices. I would say 8, minimum 10, based on the previous provinces. Rift Valley divided into 2 because of its vast and unique challenges Rift Valley has. North and South Rift. Okay? The first offices...
Did you get the budgetary allocation in this financial year?
No.
So you're not in the process. Of
We are in the process because
building
now
capacity.
we
You
are.
don't have money.
Did you get more than you got last year?
Slightly more, but that was for us a specific task in terms of recruiting monitors on the ground. So it is a 1-year thing just to do. But we in the supplementary budget, it's coming. So not the full amount requested, but just for a few. So the first regional office is going to be in Isiolo and Nakuru. You've mentioned Isiolo. Isiolo is the real powder keg. Actually, that's a real concern. Not even Nakuru. I'm not even worried about Rift Valley. I'm worried about Isiolo. And of course, Nakuru, because of the issues that I talked about, the 2-pillar strategy we had. And North Rift in Kitale, near Eldoret. So Eldoret will be flanked and pieced. And to add capacity. So that now, these things that you're talking about, there's a continual presence on the ground. That has not been the case in the past. And being very truthful here, has not been the case in the past. Okay? We're recruiting more people. Part of the budget actually is to hire more people. We're very limited staff tracking of people. We're only at like 60 people in the whole place. We're supposed to be, if you look at our staffing needs, it's supposed to be 3 times 180 people. So part of that, we submitted that so that we can have genuine capacity, presence on the ground. So that now when we start that conversation of, because for you cannot start something you cannot finish. It's dangerous. You rather not start it.
Right.
You understand, City? You rather not start it because if we can start something, do we have what it takes to finish? We realize we don't. So let's build capacity so that when we can have that conversation, we have the capacity and means to have that honest conversation in our
Apart
country.
from everything else that, at the commission that you've been doing, is there political goodwill? Have you gone to the political leadership of the country and said, you know what, people, we have never resolved the issues of 2008 post-election violence. We've never really had that moment where we breathe, where we speak, and we need to have that. And they sat back and said, you have a point. Do you have the goodwill to start that conversation?
So otherwise known as
without the political goodwill, is that conversation really likely to happen?
There's let me say it's there's goodwill, there's intent to, how to put it, it's theoretical. It's on paper, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. I mean, we
It's
have
a
it on
good thing.
record.
We look at it, but will goes beyond intent to action.
Yep.
You understand? So will comprehensively is you intending and doing something. And the intention now is what usually lacks because it is a very painful conversation, City. It is extremely painful. So that, because as we know, the actors, perpetrators are the politicians for the most part. Not always. They're good. They are the perpetrators. So are they willing to have that discussion? No, they won't because they know they're
exposing
perpetrators.
themselves.
Yes.
Okay. So even as talking about political goodwill, is there enough of a presence of mind with all these things that you're saying you're putting in place? Maybe the communication has not been public because it's nice to hear that the NCIC is doing all of these things, building capacity here and there. Communication could be public because then if it is out in the open that people know that this is what is happening, science might tell you that the chances of people then reducing then on their action would is quite high. All right. But in terms of those who would be perpetrators, do you feel that there is a presence of mind that they would be careful about what they would say because they know that the commission is on ground doing their work? I'll give you an example. If you went into Kigali today, it's almost palpable that people know, you know what, we're not even going to meet in groups and have these political discussions because they are aware of what happened 28 years ago, one, but they also know that there will be consequences if you engage in this behavior. I don't think you can say that can be mirrored here because there are commissions there that exist. There are people who are watching. There are people who are... Many say that they've not really healed from it because they're still walking on eggshells. They don't want it to happen again. Can you say that the same thing happens here? That people know that there's a commission, that people know that there are things being done, there's political will, and because of that, they therefore will not behave in this manner. I know what I think, but what do you think from a commission point of view where you're doing all this work, but do you feel it? Do you as a commission feel that people are taking you seriously and are not going to engage because they can see the work that you're doing?
You know what? Let me just also Okay, this is the Truth Commission. You guys are the Truth Commission. let me also be truthful. And I'm not defending politicians, so let me put a disclaimer to what I'm about to say. I'm not defending them. But Eric, to be very frank and practical, and the real thing, it's just a few of the politicians that incite and are warmongers and are warlords. Okay, a good majority of them actually are peace loving and really want. For a good majority. See, hold on.
I actually agree with you. I actually agree with you. But in these matters, if they don't speak out against what is wrong,
they're complicit in it.
Yeah, and it only takes one. It only takes one bad apple to spoil the bunch, doesn't it?
Right.
The rest of the apples are pretty good, shiny things.
No, very true.
Yeah.
And in places where there are clear fault lines, especially in pastoralist communities, okay. Where it's like a good example is Isiolo or Samburu, where you have two communities living side by side, the Turkanas and Samburus. Isiolo, where the 5 major pastoralists live together. In North Rift, in Suguta Valley, where you have the Pokot, the Marakwet, and Turkanas live together. What you see is now I'm saying it's few politicians, is in these regions, is those local politicians exploiting those fault lines, balkanizing these communities, so that they can mobilize, because some of these constituencies, how they traverse many communities, so they want guys pushed out, their guys in, so they can get more votes. Okay, now and that's exactly what they do, and especially in these pastoral communities, especially where you don't have, you Eric have a fixed address. Okay, today this is the address, tomorrow they have moved to another, whole community has moved. So it works for these politicians to incite so that you guys kick these guys out. Now, on that part. Are we like Rwanda? No, we're not. In the sense that in the national level, but I can tell you in the local level. Okay, that's why I said that example. If you go to these communities where there's serious issues, there's Samburu, in this case Baragoi. If you go to Isiolo, if you go to the capital, Baringo, those politicians. Yes, they know what we can do, and there's a respect and a deterrence to it. There's I won't say fear. There's a respect because they know we've been hard on them. We don't announce everything. What Linturi said is a national news. Okay, because it is a big rally and the whole nation was watching,
and it was live.
But I can tell you in the Kapedos, in Lomelu, in Milingot, in Marti, where the MCA or the MP, where there's no national coverage, where they're inciting, like that's the reason I'm glad you cited that fella in Isiolo, because it's not national news, it wasn't. But we were monitoring, we know exactly, we have people on the ground to an extent in these sensitive areas, so we know what they're saying. And in this case, I can tell you for a fact, they don't play that much because they know what we've done. So we don't announce also, we don't, Linturi being arrested was national news. When you arrest these guys, it's not national news. They're arrested, they're processed, and we have almost 400 cases, 450 cases right now pending in court in such areas. So hopefully we can get there. On the local, to answer your question, on the local level, yes, there's that respect and deterrence. In the national level, not so much, because I don't think we pronounce everything we do out there in the national.
So you're not going for the big fish. In other words, at national level, you're talking about big fish. At national level, for example, look at what has happened with the Linturi issue. It has taken that direct split between those who are on the Azimio side and those who are on the UDA side. So every person on the UDA side will come out and say, but this is not what Linturi was talking about, but this is, Linturi was taken out of context. Every other person on this other side is saying, no, Linturi should be arrested, Linturi should be charged, forgetting that some of those who are shouting loudest also have pending issues.
True.
Or have also been cited before, will also be quoted by others who say, Buana, you are talking like this, and during a BBI rally in Narok, you stood up and said this kind of things. So at the national level, you seem to be, also playing that dance of, okay, these are national leaders, they command a lot of respect. Is that what NCIC is doing?
No. You see, perception and reality are two different things, okay? That's a perception, and we're always accused of that, depending on what side it is, okay? But what is the reality? If you look at the people, the cases we have, especially the big cases we have, I don't think for us it's a big fish, small fish. If you do something that threatens cohesion and peace in the country, we'll come after you, okay? Now, here's the challenge we have. And we're accused of that, especially after this Linturi issue. People said, well, you guys are taking sides. So and so said, we started seeing clips were sent to us. I'm like, okay, hold on. Why did you send this clip that day, that time to say that? Because, of course, we can be, back to what your question.
It's your job.
We can be everywhere at the same time. Okay? We're not omnipresent in your capacity. Okay? So, there are certain things we can monitor. We can be every single corner of this country at all times. So, when somebody in a nondescript place says something stupid, a very little, and then it's recorded on phone, and then 3 years later it's circulated because somebody else say that, to me it's ridiculous. Now what they said is wrong, it's still wrong. But let me say this first of all on that issue before I respond to it. You cannot justify an evil by pointing out to another evil.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
They don't. Yeah. So you saying, well, so and so said it, so it's okay for you to say it. No, you can't.
Yeah.
You cannot justify an evil for an evil. Now, to the point, what you're saying is our process and even an act is very clear. If you have a complaint, first of all, any Kenyan can come to NCIC and lodge a complaint. And by law, we are mandated and obliged to respond and investigate. True or false, we have to respond to it. So they never came and say, you know what? There's 2 ways we can do investigation. On our own accord, we can initiate it. If we see a problem like we saw, we have monitors say, you know what? We need to investigate it. We need to summon these guys. Like you said it in Isiolo. We did it. Or somebody can say, and then you can come and say, you know what? Latiff yesterday was in this meeting and was inciting people. Okay? We'll take your statement and start investigation. Now, if those guys who are saying we're parties and if they've never come to us and say, you know what, so and so said this yesterday, go and investigate it. No. Now, although there are people in Azimio who still believe in me, we have cases against them we've taken to court and they're prominent, they're big fish as you call them in court, and we'll continue to it. And let me finish by saying this, and I'm going to be very clear, and this is a warning to the politicians who are listening, and made me very clear. What Senator Linturi said was unfortunate. What is worse is when other politicians take it and for political expediency, take mileage on it and use it over and over and over and repeat it over. So also we target them because they're not helping either. Okay, we need to move forward from that. Okay, he's being processed. He's apologized. I'm glad he apologized. Even for the first time, actually, there's a genuine apology. And I'm glad actually he did it in his own volition before we made him apologize. Okay? But any politician, especially on this other side, who think they can use that for mileage and repeat over and exploit it, also, to me, is even worse because this is intent. Because in criminal law, like in murder, there is first degree where there is you plan and meditate. And there's manslaughter where it just happened. Okay? Those now who go beyond this is intent, this is first degree. And will be hard on them even more than this.
Respond to some of these comments. And this is all talking about public trust on the NCIC. Boyd Barsitei says, NCIC is biased. They are biased themselves. The evidence is too glaring. Collins Kimtai Kipsat says, I believe NCIC is not an independent body. It's directed on what to do. It's a toothless dog that never bites. It's a useless commission. It must be disbanded. Bernard Kipkarir, useless commission, bias and state weapon against the weak people. How many leaders on the other side of the political wing have been quoted making reckless statements and commission is keeping silence?
You know, let me first respond by this. When there is this logic, CT, actually, because you're the one who does traffic here, when there's a plethora of incidents in the roads and more accidents, does it mean you disband the police or NTSA or you bring more police?
You ban cars.
You strengthen the institution.
Strengthen the institution.
Okay.
Now, that is a perception, it's an accusation, but there's no evidence. There's no one time we receive orders from above. We do what we need to do independently. We're an independent commission, okay? Policy, it comes to especially operational. We have operational. I can tell you for a fact, there's no one time I receive a call, say, we need to do this. We act. If there's an issue, they need to give us evidence of those people they are saying when they have incited, and they will respond.
So you do the job yourselves.
Yes.
You are not directed by any other agency.
No, we've never been directed by any agency.
Okay.
Yes.
Enough said. Dr. Danvas Makori, Commissioner with NCIC, thank you very much for joining us. You have a lot of work this year, and we hope to see you again as we see the evidence of the work that you're doing. Asante sana.
Thank you guys. Always a pleasure, and you guys are doing a fantastic job. What you do actually makes a big difference. Just to let you know.
Kabisa.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Asante sana. Keep it right here for more conversations. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Choose your preferred driver, mode of transport, and negotiate your fare to your destination for a safe, comfortable, and affordable trip only with InDriver.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire Dennis Aseto. Archbishop Anthony Muheria has called on political leaders to preach peace and shun utterances that may plunge the country into violence and chaos ahead of the August elections. Muheria reminded leaders that they have a national responsibility to protect the nation and deliver services to citizens. Muheria further called on Kenyans to vote wisely in the August 9th general elections to ensure the country gets leaders whose priority is unity and peace. Now, drama is expected today during a meeting by Deputy President William Ruto in Bomet County after leaders vying for the governor's seat in the county disagreed over who should attend. Yesterday, groups of supporters of Governor Hilary Barchok and those of former County Governor Isaac Ruto clashed as they prepared the venue for the event. Isaac Ruto, who is also the Deputy President's ally, has criticized Barchok's stunts, saying every leader is allowed to attend.
This is a UDA affair, and if you are planning to come, of course, being a resident of Bomet, you're also welcome. But behave. We don't want to be dictated in terms of what we want in terms of the program, who should speak and who should not speak. So this is a UDA affair. Na ni mambo yetu tutafanya kama familia ya UDA.
We know that he himself is not even a member of UDA. So we do not know what he would want to do in a UDA rally anyway. Because he's a Jubilee member, he has not resigned.
Meanwhile, Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining, John Musonik, who has stated his intentions to vie as governor, said all politicians should be allowed to attend the meeting, sentiments opposed by Barchok.
I know there have been some issues here and there, but again, as Bomet County residents, we really want and we make sure that we show that maturity in terms of welcoming all the visitors. There is no violence.
This is our affair. Kama unakuja, kuja kama mugeni. And it will all depend on what we will do. Tukiona kama utaongea, utaongea. Tukiona pia kama tuko na mambo yetu mengi ya UDA ya kusema, na kama ukose nafasi, panga yako, utualike pia, tutakuja tuombe pamoja.
Now, Kajiado woman Representative Janet Teya's re-election bid received a shot in the arm following endorsement from various women business groups in the county ahead of August 2022 elections. The first-term lawmaker, who met a majority of self-help groups from Kitengela, reiterated her agenda to continue powering women business ventures in the region in a move aimed at transforming lives and eradicating poverty. The 38-year-old defied all odds in 2017 to clinch the seat, garnering more than 186,085 votes to beat 6 other women, including Orange Democratic Movement's Esther Samoire, who managed 4,486 votes. Nakuru County government has inked a deal with Kenya Commercial Bank aimed at offering training and affordable financing to over 2,000 small and medium enterprises within the devolved unit. Governor Lee Kinyanjui said his administration was partnering with the bank to offer credit facilities at a 12.5% interest rate per annum, out of which 5% will be covered by the county government's cooperatives revolving fund, while the remaining 7.5% would be catered for by the borrower. Speaking at the county headquarters, Kinyanjui noted that though most SMEs had been adversely affected by COVID-19 economic aftershocks, affordable financing remained a challenge due to high interest rates. Now, over 27,000 schoolgirls have dropped out of school in Uasin Gishu County within the last 4 years due to teenage pregnancy. The girls aged between 12 and 18 years terminated their primary and secondary school education as a result of adolescent pregnancy, according to Uasin Gishu Deputy Governor Daniel Chemno. Chemno said the teenage pregnancy figures in the county were alarming, while pointing fingers at border operators and tutors as the main perpetrators of the vice. He made the remarks during the disbursement of bursary worth 124 million shillings to 19 19,674 bright students from needy families drawn from the 30 wards within the devolved unit in a ceremony that was presided over by Governor Jackson Mandago. Now, the East African Business Council is urging East African Community Partner States to adopt and implement EAC coordinated approach in COVID-19 to eliminate COVID-19 related non-tariff barriers and spur trade. The EABC is calling upon EAC partner states to mutually recognize COVID-19 test and vaccination certificates through the EAC pass, eliminate the need for confirmatory test and quarantine for persons with valid COVID-19 test and or vaccination certificates. The newly introduced COVID-19 monetary testing of truck drivers entering or transiting through Uganda highly hampered the smooth flow of cargo across the region. The new measure mandated truck drivers to pay $30 for a COVID-19 test each time they cross into Uganda, increasing the cost of doing business. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Download the InDriver app from the App Store or Google Play Store to enjoy a safe, comfortable, and affordable ride around Nairobi.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, so we're looking at traffic on Jogoro this morning, getting into the city, and it's quite hot and heavy. Also happening on Langata Road, quite a lot of action. Uhuru Highway doesn't look pretty either as you're getting into the CBD and approaching Haile Selassie, the avenue. Coming off Gong Road, also quite heavy as you get towards Community. So today's the day, and everybody got the memo apparently, and everybody's out on the streets, and it doesn't look very nice. Into the CBD, quite packed as well. Coming out of Westlands, that started really early. And the Thika Superhighway feeding off from the drive-in, off from Outer Ring, coming off that Kariobangi North area off Outer Ring, packed as well. Limuru Road doing its thing this morning, and it doesn't look pretty either. Coming off Kiambu Road, quite some traffic as well. Traffic hour started about half an hour ago, and from all the looks of things, it's going to be here with us for some time. Shall we be careful through it? Let's do it. Talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127. Let's keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
8. Good morning. It's the 10th day of January 2022. Happy Monday wherever you're tuned in to The Situation Room this morning. We are on Spice FM, broadcasting around the country. We're broadcasting to the world on Spice FM KE, Facebook and YouTube. And we're also live for the next 1 hour on KTN Home. A very good morning to you all, wherever you're watching us from. C.T. Muga begins the day with a proverb.
Penye miti hakuna wajenzi.
In English?
Where there are trees, there are no builders. That is direct translation.
Penye miti hakuna wajenzi.
Yes, literally speaking, if you see a huge forest of trees, then what that tells you is that people who build, specifically people who build using wood, either don't exist or they're in very small numbers.
Oh, I honestly beg to differ, Muga.
I would like you to differ, sir.
You know, that's a very Western retro interpretation of the whole thing.
It is.
Because on this continent, we exist harmoniously with nature until fairly recently. So maybe kwenye miti si ati hakuna wajenzi, it is that kuna wajenzi ambao wanajali masilahi, wajenzi ambao wanajali environment. So the retro Western interpretation, I disagree.
I think it's not a Western proverb, though, Governor. It's a Swahili proverb. So what would you translate? How would you translate this Swahili proverb?
I would as always, I would seek the context of a proverb in order to see what it is trying to. You see, like, for example, in my neck of the woods where I grew up, you might say something like, dogatenya ukinyirite nyanya, which literally could mean maybe that a bird in hand is worth two in the bush or something like this. But that proverb is not telling you not to be interested in more or ambition or whatever, but it's saying be careful how you do it, so that what you have is what maybe it can also have the same interpretation, like the grass appears greener on the other side, which again is used to try and encourage people be appreciative of what you have, appreciative of what you have, even as you seek for more. So I would look for context like that.
I think His Excellency has it right, because as he was speaking, I was thinking of some anthropological information I was reading a while back about certain African communities which at a certain point in time had houses that neither had what you may call windows traditionally or even doors. So in such a context, you'd say, in a community where houses don't have windows and doors, there are no thieves.
For example.
Or, if you want to expound it, you'd say, people more or less have the same thing. So the concept of the green-eyed monster of envy and avarice doesn't exist, because there is nothing to envy your neighbor for.
You're all the same.
Yes, and why you are right is because you've actually done the very thing a proverb is supposed to do. It's supposed to elicit debate.
Okay.
Yes.
Provoke thought.
Yes. And you've gotten right into it feet first.
Derito Muriithi is the governor of Laikipia County, and he now also wears a new cap. So, what are you again? We've been seeing in the media very many chairman of a board of... What's your title when it comes to the Raila Odinga presidential campaign?
You're quite right, Eric. I mean, I am governor of Laikipia. I'm also chair of the finance committee of the Council of Governors. And I'm also, beginning early this last week, the chairman of the campaign board for the Azimio presidential candidate.
Okay. And when it comes to PNU?
When I am a PNU Supremo is what I saw somebody referring to. But I saw, and I thought, well, okay, there is a name I have not heard in a while. PNU Supremo.
Okay, so PNU Supremo and chairman of the campaign.
Yeah.
So welcome to the Situation Room. Good to have
you.
you. Good to have you in the show, as always.
Thank you.
We want to talk about what Azimio is basically going to be selling to the public.
Indeed.
And, you've been talking about this. We've seen other Supremos as well talking about the building of a grand coalition in terms of Azimio. What is this grand coalition?
It's a nationalist coalition. And I'm sure you're going to ask me, what we mean by a nationalist coalition.
Yeah, is there any that's regional?
I think a good example is the National Rainbow Coalition. I think that's a really good example of what we are creating. And we do so because, you see, Kenya belongs to all of us. I know some guys argue and debate and politic as though they are about to take off to some other country. So let's ban this one and then go some other place. I mean, we, Azimio, we are going to be right here. This is our country and we must build it together. Now, that means we must accommodate different views. Your neighbor, your colleague will have a different view from yours. But how else can democracy function if you cannot be tolerant of that view, that I may have a different view from you? It doesn't make my view wrong or any lesser than yours. So even if you prefer this candidate to this other one, or I prefer this different candidate, that is what democracy is about. So what we as Azimio are asking all of us as Kenyans, we owe it to ourselves to step closer and together and step forward. If you recall, in the immediate aftermath of the Rainbow campaign, and what was Rainbow selling? Rainbow was selling hope. Just like perhaps a comparable campaign by Obama. Rainbow, our tune was unbogable. I think it was Julius Owino, Gidi Gidi Maji Maji.
Yep.
And they sang this song. I said, we are unbogable. And it gave you this, we are saying we are unstoppable. We are, and that's what it was. And in the immediate aftermath, a poll by Gallup found Kenya to be the most hopeful nation on earth. Because it was about hope, and we believed we were going to change Kenya, and we did. Police officers found themselves arrested by citizens and taken to a police station. Police officers. That's what it is about. And I tell you, Eric, the content of the campaign is as important. The tone, the conversations in the campaign is one of the most critical issues. Why? Because the economy, Eric, runs on confidence.
So the National Rainbow Coalition brought together various actors
Indeed.
and various parties. There was Ford Kenya, there was the Democratic Party, there was LDP and all the others. They formed the National Rainbow Coalition. Okay, 5 years down the road, we saw PNU, all right? It was a party of national unity. It was talking about the same thing, national unity, bring together all these other parties. In fact, let's forget going into this election as DP, let's go as PNU, Party of National Unity. 5 years later, URP, TNA and others come together and they form the Jubilee Coalition.
Because the negative...
CORD had a coalition. 5 years later, we have Jubilee coming together as a party and NASA, the National Super Alliance. So what's the difference between all those things that we've had in the last 20 years with what you're telling us that we're going to have now?
Well, first of all, the vision of a nationalist coalition is not new. We have not come to the table to say that we have invented it. We haven't. As a matter of fact, we have come to the table saying every time where Kenya has been able to achieve a nationalist coalition, Kenya does better. Cast back, we were not born, but look at 1963.
Excuse me.
I was born. There's an element that
just
carry on.
No, I'm just telling you I was born. Go on.
My apologies.
Yes.
Some of us. I think that's the better. Yes. When I are in trouble here. Some of us, Now, anyway, we let's not lose it. The point was 1963 is a nationalist coalition. As a matter of fact, told me by my own mother that there was an election in 1961 or early 62. Kanu, in fact, had more seats, but Jaramogi refused to form government, internal self-government, as a strategy to force the colonialist to release Jomo Kenyatta. So you can see the idea of people looking beyond themselves and beyond their ethnic community or their region and looking to Kenya, and that's what we mean by a nationalist coalition. You see it again in Rainbow. Now, it's not every time when we attempt that we have been successful. It isn't. And I think that there are several things that need to play right in order for Kenya to move forward properly or to move forward better. One is a nationalist coalition, but it's also a question of what is that nationalist coalition selling? The truth of the matter is this. In 2013, the Jubilee coalition, because remember it is TNA URP, they were successful. But what were they selling? They sold fear of ICC, fear of Kimodo, and so on. But they won. It's the same with Trump. What did Trump sell? Trump was selling fear. Fear of who? Fear of black people, fear of women, fear of immigrants. He won. But by winning using negative emotion, you set the country up for failure. In the end of Trump, there were still angry white men who went then to try and ban Capitol as though that was going to change anything. It didn't. If you look at Jubilee has been really successful in putting up infrastructure. Really, really successful. The truth of the matter is that Uhuru has built far many more roads than Kibaki did. But the economy has not quite reacted in the same manner because there was negative sentiment inside the economy. So the tone and the what we sell needs to be correct, but also it is far better if it is sold by a nationalist coalition because then everybody is included, and that's the difference.
So, Governor, what is Azimio selling? And I think now that's where we jump onto that, is saying, all right, with all this, background that you've given, what is being sold? Because if we want to look at what the situation is on the ground now, people's hopes have been dashed. But I still find Kenya quite a resilient people. Indeed. In that they're still saying, all right, we are still hopeful that something else can happen where our livelihoods are secured. On the back of all of that, what is it that Azimio is coming in to say that things are going to change and get better? That on that hope we're selling beyond the hope, because it's nice, but you can't really touch it until you see something tangible.
What it is.
Right? So what is it?
Our competitors are fond of saying, what is the agenda? We are on the agenda of completing Vision 2030. And I'll try and be quick with it. Middle income, democratic, industrializing country with a high quality of life. Middle income, democratic, industrializing with a high quality of life. So if you unpack what's inside there, what is middle income? Middle income is $15,000 per person per year. $15,000 per person per year. You can translate that to approximately 1.5 million shillings yes. Per person, like 125,000 shillings per person per month. That's the target. How do you get there? You get there by promoting manufacturing and high quality, high technology services. Now, again, it's not a new thing as though we have invented the wheel. That is how rich countries have been able to do it. Even the ones we say we want to emulate, Singapore, Korea, that's how you do it. So the most urgent business for Kenya in front of us is actually to create manufacturing. And manufacturing is not about going to India or some other place to find an industrialist to come here. It's about enabling Eric or Derito or Udu or Muga to manufacture. Like how? If you go to Nyahururu today, you will find a young man with others called Jogu who makes tuk-tuks. If you go to Nyanyuki, you will find some young men called Swift Lab who make drones. There in Nyanyuki, you will find Mwireri Engineering who makes grain dryers and has been selling across the continent. It's about ensuring that you make that person more competitive. How? By buying down cost of credit, cost of power, and making that SME in Nanyuki competitive. It is not rocket science, it is straightforward, but it requires courage from a policy point of view. Democratic. That look, and honestly I want to say to my colleagues in politics, order people. It cannot be that you go around threatening Kenyans, calling them strange names. Every Kenyan has a constitutional right to be a Kenyan and to live wherever they wish and to do whatever business they wish that is legal and hopefully also moral. Democratic. And that is why we as Azimio, we don't ask you to fold up your political party in order to join with us. Come and form a coalition with us so that we move together. Industrializing, I've spoken to this question. High quality of life, and I want to spend a moment here because health is a very critical thing in ensuring a high quality of life. You know, if you are the richest person on the continent but you are sick, then you know. So, what is it about health, and how do we get? It is about universal health. Universal health is one. Access, meaning that the citizen does not have to walk forever to find services, and that when they get there, they find a full service. And above all, that when they go to hospital, it is not financially catastrophic. That is why NHIF reforms, that is why ensuring that every household has health insurance. For example, go to Laikipia. 65% of the households have health insurance right now. Right now as we speak.
That they contribute to or that is paid for them by the
Both.
county government?
A combination. A combination. Because the indigent, like if you take elderly or if you take persons with living with disabilities and so on. So it's a combination. Those who are contributing directly for themselves, but also those who are supported by government. And we can see the target of 100% is within reach. That is what Azimio is about. Azimio is about not just hope, but hope you can touch and feel, and hope that is real, not just slogans.
So those things that you've just said are things that we've heard before. From the various political campaigns, we heard them from TNA, we heard them from CORD, we heard them from Jubilee, we heard them from NASA. We've heard them the same from URP now. We are hearing the same from Azimio. How different? What's the difference? Is a difference in the person who's speaking?
Interesting you asked that question, Eric. My answer would be like this. It is better to travel with somebody who knows the way than to travel with somebody who is guessing the way. Now, they both might have promised you, let us go to Mombasa or let us go to Kinshasa. All right? But it is better to travel in the company of those who actually know the way to Mombasa as opposed to those who are guessing the way to Mombasa. So you may say we sound the same, but you must ask a deeper question. You must ask a deeper question, Eric. Who of these teams, who among us have demonstrated to you and to the whole world that we know the way to the things that we're promising?
It's the same people, Governor. I mean, unless you're telling me that this is an admission by those who have been in TNA and Jubilee that they clearly do not know the way. And that's why they're now joining Raila and his team who know the way.
Eric.
It's an admission that finally, you know what? All those things we were telling you and Raila was telling you the same. Actually, Raila is the one who knew the way. Now we are joining him.
Eric, Director Moridi is sitting in your studio.
Yes.
Okay. You must ask the question, if Director Moridi says we can get UHC, has he demonstrated in Laikipia that it's practical to get UHC?
Yes.
Director Moridi is sitting in your studio. If he says we can create jobs, you must ask the really hard question. Show us which jobs you have created in Laikipia. Demonstrate to us with numbers. And that's the difference.
So, Governor, are you saying, because I know Eric wants to go to break, but are you saying that you being on that team with other people, then demonstrative of the fact that what you have done in your area and that you're joining with other like-minded people is then a guarantee to the people of Kenya that we can do this.
Absolutely.
And we can do
And it is not just me. Example number one, exhibit number one, Elgeyo Marakwet, the fastest growing county in Kenya, growing at 10% in Azimio. Exhibit 2, the second fastest growing counties in Laikipia. I mean, Laikipia and Nyandarua, the second fastest growing counties in Kenya, both in Azimio. Kisumu, the third fastest growing county, growing at around 8% in Azimio. look at and keep going like that. Then ask a different question. If and you know when you are, for example, when you go to court, you are innocent until you are proven guilty. But let me ask, if you got in a bus and a really large majority of the people in a bus have court cases, what does that tell you in your own mind?
That you're heading to prison.
Among other
it's
things.
a prison bus.
It's because you
transport A to point A to point B.
Yes. 8:30. Let's take a break. Derito Mureithi, the governor of Laikipia County and chairman of the Raila Azimio presidential candidate campaign board, is with us in the studio. He's also the chairman of the finance committee of the Council of Governors. He's also supremo of PNU party and very many other things. We're having a conversation about the Azimio and the Azimio promise. What is this promise that Azimio is giving to us? Let's take a break. We are live on SpiceFM, on KTN Home and online. We'll be back shortly.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refuse to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani maternity hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it
own
up.
money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The weather with SpiceFM.
Sunny conditions in Nairobi this morning, 18 degrees. We'll see highs of 26 today and lows of 16. It's sunny in Nakuru at 16, highs of 28 and lows of 13 today. Sunny in Nyeri town, highs of 25 and lows of 10, while in Eldoret it's sunny at 16 with highs of 26. We'll see lows of 14. Mostly cloudy at 27 in Mombasa, highs of 32 and lows of 26. It's mostly cloudy at 27 in Malindi, going to highs of 31 and lows of 26. 32 will be the high in Kisumu. It's sunny at 22 and we'll see lows of 19, while in Kakamega it's sunny at 23, highs of 33 and lows of 15. Kampala, sunny conditions throughout this Monday at 22, highs of 29, and it's 29 and partly sunny in Dar es Salaam. We'll see highs of 32 and lows of 27. It's sunny at 17. In Johannesburg, highs of 25 and lows of 16, while it's clear in Lagos for a change at 25, highs of 33 and lows of 25. Mostly cloudy in Kinshasa at 24. We'll go to highs of 31 and lows of 23.
Spice up your life.
It's a manic Monday. Quite a lot of traffic wherever you look this morning. Coming off a southern bypass, which is all right if you're heading off Mombasa Road. You're going to get onto Langata Road if that's the option that you take, and you will find a lot of traffic there. You can go further and then use Gong Road to get out of the city. However, you're going to get stuck in some traffic on Gong Road as well. We're looking at Raila Odinga Way, then getting to the City Mortuary roundabout, and that'll slow you down some. Uhuru Highway is piling up as well. Into the CBD, there's mishmash of traffic coming in from all areas. And what a sight to behold on the Thika Superhighway today, where it's hot and heavy coming off of Badari North, coming off Outer Ring. That is crazy, as is Limuru Road. Today we have in and outbound traffic on Limuru Road. Very, very slow. Coming out of Westlands as well. Red Hill Link Road. We can say it thrice. Use that as an option to get out of the mess that is Westlands. Let's talk though, see where you might be stuck this morning. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The Situation Room on Spice FM, on KTN Home and online. With you this morning is Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, City Muga, and our guest is the Governor of Laikipia County, the Honorable Nderito Muredi City.
May I, Muga, try and complete an answer to a question you asked me, Eric? That am I saying that TNA did not know the way and so on? And I'm not saying any such thing. What I'm saying is we completing Vision 2030. Vision 2030 has 3 pillars and 3 enablers. And the truth of the matter is that both the Kibaki and the Uhuru administration have done about 5 of those things that needed to be done in order to get us to where we need to be. Okay? What are those things? Let me start with the political pillar, which sought to reform our politics so that some of the things that have given us difficulties in the past, we overcome them, and above all, we promote fundamental rights and freedoms of Kenyans. And that we ultimately did with the Constitution of Kenya 2010. The political culture, though, is work in progress. Witness some of the nasty comments by political leaders this weekend. So the political culture, fully reforming it, it is work in progress. But the foundational law, the Constitution itself, is delivered. Social pillar, which has to do with you cannot leave any citizen behind, and you must do everything practical to bring everybody to a point where they are also able to move on their own, and hence the issues of social protection. And they did not start with Uhuru, they actually started with Kibaki. And Uhuru has progressed social protection, and Raila is proposing to progress social protection even further. Take the enablers. ICT started with Kibaki, unleashing mobile phones, unleashing the fiber optic cables and so on, progressed further by the Jubilee administration. Take infrastructure, started with Kibaki, accelerated by Jubilee administration. So, when we tell you that we are in the cusp of an economic revolution, we are in the beginning of an economic revolution because the foundations are now all basically sorted out. Last one is education. And although we are debating, complaining with one another about the CBC, the reality is that there is no country on earth that is able to achieve middle class without about 25 and above % of the population having tertiary education. And we are nearly there. So it is not that these 2 previous administrations did not know. It is that there were 6 big things that needed to be done. 5 are done realistically well. And I ask you again, Eric, if you want to go to Mombasa, travel with those who know the way, not those who are guessing the way.
So City ask now.
Valid point.
I have very many counters to that, but let's continue.
No, valid counters notwithstanding, it's a valid point. It has been said on many occasions that the anti-Raila rhetoric in central Kenya was extremely effective. Effective to the point where voting for Raila was akin to putting a noose around your own neck. Now, the chairman of the Azimio group, the chairman, the person who's leading the electoral process for the Azimio candidate is from central Kenya. And he's with others from central Kenya. My focus is central Kenya. The question I'm asking is, are they able to retrace? Are they able to turn around this very effective narrative that has existed for so long?
Yes, they are able. In fact, I should say they are ready, willing, and able. Ready, willing and able.
Yes.
Just a short few months ago, it was thought that Honorable Raila couldn't, in fact, whatever. But we have proven beyond a shadow of doubt that the people of Mount Kenya are ready, willing, and able to embrace the Honorable Raila. The people of Mount Kenya accept that we had been in competition with Honorable Raila, firstly, or most recently, with the Uhuru presidency, and before the Uhuru presidency, with the Kibaki presidency. If you look at poll numbers, they are certainly trending in the right direction. Raila Odinga has moved from about 14% to 33% now. If you look at other optics, like just how citizens turn out and their reaction to the message and to a candidate, you can see without a doubt that Mount Kenya is ready, willing, and able to embrace Honorable Raila. And I repeat again, yes, we have had competition because Mount Kenya has produced the last two presidential candidates. And obviously, Mount Kenya then voted and supported their sons in those two elections. And I don't think you can begrudge them. But Mount Kenya is solidly behind Raila Odinga this time round.
Why Raila? You just told us, Governor, that the fastest growing counties in the country, and you can tell us what we're using as a yardstick, Elgeyo Marakwet County, Laikipia County, Nyandarua County,
and Kisumu.
The top three are Jubilee counties. You've also told us that Jubilee has delivered. Roads have been done. Education system is moving. You're telling us about the economic pillar, the social pillar. If Jubilee has been working, why are you breaking what's working to go now and work with your former opponent?
Oh, I'm not.
Why is Jubilee not?
I'm not aware. I'm not aware, Eric, that Jubilee has a presidential candidate. To the best of my knowledge, they don't.
The deputy leader of Jubilee.
Oh, he has said differently. For purposes of re-election or for purposes of vying, he is not Jubilee. The only thing he is happy to accept is success. So if a road has been built, he wants to say he was there when it was built.
And which is my point exactly.
And if, on the other hand, if we haven't attained the level of income we want for people, then he wants to distance himself from that. So in a very real sense, he wants to have his cake and eat it, but he's not here to defend himself. Let's move on.
So the question I'm asking is that unit that was working together in 2013 and again in 2017, and that you say has delivered, and even the economic figures are showing that clearly, even in areas where you had a Jubilee governor and a Jubilee senator and a Jubilee majority in the assembly, the results are clearly showing here that Jubilee has delivered. Why are you breaking that one?
Eric, I fear you're putting words into my mouth. let me clarify my way.
Eric is doing precisely that. Putting words in your mouth.
Absolutely, because
now they're in your mouth.
Yeah. So let me rearrange them then. Let me rearrange. Eric, in any organization, one hopes that 100% of the team is pulling in the right direction, but very, very often, in organizations, whether in the public space or in the private space, you will find individuals, managers in that organization who are pulling in an opposite direction. For instance, I think it is not lost on anybody in Kenya. There has been a major rift between the president and his deputy, because for 4 or 5 years, the president has been saying, look, guys, can we focus at the job at hand? And some guys were more interested in campaigning on a daily basis. And that has led to some very serious rifts. That, look, what is it that you are not hearing? Let us work first and create then the platform even for you or any other person to campaign. So, the truth of the matter, the number two has been focused in a different direction. You can't begrudge him. It is for Kenyans to judge. What I'm saying to you, Eric, again and again, that if you are in a bus or you walk in a room and just about everybody in that room has a court case or another. Now, and I'm not saying they're guilty. I'm just asking you, what impression does that give you if you walk in a room of 30 people and 25 of them have court cases ongoing? What does that tell you?
You have a robust justice system.
Oh, it's possibly. So, Director Morelli, what guarantees? Because I think that's at the end of all of this, then, is that question. That whether it's things that we've heard before almost on a repetitive basis that we want to take the country forward economically, that we want to do, whether there has been political musical chairs that has played around here, if people have moved from one place to the other. At the end of the day, even if people have moved, which they often do, especially here, what guarantee can you give to Kenyans today that in as much as we have moved, whether the message is the same or the message has changed, whether it is now support has moved from one individual to another, what guarantee can you give Kenyans that what you are serving them is what that they will consume that will better their livelihoods and better this nation, that they can touch and feel today?
What guarantee? Let me offer 3 points. Point number 1, of course, is track record, which Eric was trying to rubbish a little bit here, but it's track record. The fact of the matter, for example, let me speak for myself, but I'm talking about quite a number of counties, and all of them are in Azimio. But let me talk about Laikipia for a moment. The where we said we are going to build roads, we have actually built roads. Where we said we are going to support small businesses, we have actually supported small businesses. I have an ongoing economic stimulus program for 4 billion. Now, some guys are actually saying, oh, we'll give you 100 million. And we're saying, look, guys, I mean, at least be in the same room with us. You know, if we as a county already have 1.3 billion per sub-county, what is this you're offering of 100 million in support of small business? We already have 1.3 billion, so you can only up that game. So my word is my bond. I mean, the things that I promised, and if you take my scorecard, these are the 12 things I said I will do with Laikipia. I have done them. So you can believe that the things I'm promising, I will do. Second, and that is repeated if you look at Elgeyo Marakwet, if you look at Kisumu, if you look at Azimio counties. I think you also have to look at character of the leaders involved. Because changing, reform, like for example, when you talk about small business and what needs to be done, when you go inside there, you will find that there's some laws and things that have to be consistently changed and improved. It requires courage and conviction. So you must ask yourself, who are the people, who is the individual or team of people who have the force of conviction, who are willing to go the extra mile for their conviction. Now, certainly, amongst the crop of people, of Kenyans who are offering themselves to run for presidency, none can beat Raila for living up to the force of conviction, for willing to go to jail repeatedly because you believe in a particular something. Now, 9 years, 8.5, 9 years in jail, untold misery to family. You know, Kenyans want to forget perhaps too easily that Raila Odinga was thrown in detention. His wife was working, I think, in Kenya High School. She's thrown out of a job, never mind, plus young kids. And they endure that and continue. Among these other contenders, who can really say, I have stood up? And so character, I would say, is a third thing. Because it points you to the fact that this is something somebody is doing with out of conviction, and therefore that they're more likely to do. My very last point is, again, related to character, but how? Now, I know people say the end justifies the means, but I can tell you the economy runs on confidence. If you create fear, or when you create fear in people, even if you win, you will have a great deal of difficulty in getting the economy going. The economy runs on confidence. Consumer confidence and business confidence. You cannot build confidence by doing the kind of stuff that was happening on the weekend. You build confidence by first of all getting people to feel comfortable, removing fear, and doing everything possible to create hope.
And perhaps also maybe you can chip in, because then also I'm convicted that you also build that confidence when you have an intimate knowledge and an understanding of how you're going to get these things done. Because I've often said that if you're not able to explain the how, that means that you're probably just saying things for PR.
For the sake of saying them.
But if you're able to explain to people how we're going to do it, then chances are that you've studied this stuff and that you've taken an interest in it. So you then have it hands-on in terms of how you're going to do it. So as opposed to come and making sweeping statements, then you're also being able to explain to people, this is what we are going to do. This is where we're going to get the money from to put 6,000 shillings in the hands of Kenyans every month. This is how it's actually going to happen. So you've taken time to actually study that. I think that also puts a great amount of confidence in the hearts and minds of Kenyans. And then the question is, are you ready to go that mile and say, we will explain to you how we are going to do it? Because then it shows that we are serious about this business.
And if we can persuade Eric in the following manner, you see, the economic stuff is not what's the word I am allowed to use on radio? It's not sexy. It's heavy stuff. It's heavy stuff. It's not catchy for the platform. Like, for example, let's unpack the 6,000 shillings per household. I've already explained. We'll do that. Social protection we started in Kibaki regime. Okay, at that time, in fact. It was called free maternity. For example, one of the things we're doing was free maternity.
Yep.
Then in Uhuru time, it's called Linda Mama, but an extension.
Yep.
We started in Kibaki time providing a small stipend for people with disabilities. And that has been expanded in Uhuru time, so persons with disabilities and as well as the elderly. And this is the same thing. Now, from where is the money going to come from? Two things that very, very basic things we will do. And this is why it's technical, so it's not really nice for platform politics. When you put 100 shillings in your account in a bank, that bank takes 4 shillings and 75 cents and puts it in an account in central bank. This 4 shillings does not earn interest when the bank has put it in the central bank. It's called cash ratio. Now, scientifically, we have come to the point where it is not necessary for the cash ratio to be 4.5%. So for 4 shillings and 75 cents to be put aside in the central bank, that number will come down to about 1.5 shillings, which means we are releasing 3 shillings and 25 cents back to the economy. Now, you might think it's some little money, but we are talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 600-700 billion shillings of liquidity released to become productive in the economy. Okay? So when we tell you we are going to do 6,000 shillings per household, it is because we know where we are going to get the resources from. We have said that we are going to support small business across the nation. I give you the example of the work we are doing in Laikipia as a sort of thing we are going to replicate around the nation. That we know. For instance, if you are a manufacturer in Kenya, a small manufacturer like now, the guy of Sagak Tech who make the Tuk-tuk, or Swift Lab who make drones, or Mureri Engineering who make electric dryers, you are paying nearly 20 shillings per kilowatt hour
to Kenya Power.
Granted, this month, President Uhuru and his government is trying to bring that down. But even if it comes down by 15%, that would be still about 16 shillings. Your competitor in India is paying 7 shillings. In Laikipia, this financial year, we are providing you with tax relief and tax rebate to buy down that cost of power so that you yourself, as Mureri Engineering or as Davina Engineering in Nanyuki, you are paying 8 shillings. So you pay 18 bob, you bring your receipt, and we give you back tax relief or in fact call it a rebate in order to buy down the cost of that power, and that makes you competitive compared to your competitors in India and China. The things we are telling you, we are not guessing. It is the things that we have done. A couple of things that we will change out of what Uhuru administration is doing. For example, we believe ourselves that instead of amalgamating we call them development financial institutions, so KIE, Kenya Industrial Estates, Industrial Development Bank of Kenya, ICDC, IDB and ICDC, and one that they closed called Small Finance, Small Enterprise Finance Company of Kenya. We want to bring them back and scale them up because that is what works. And we have evidence from other economies where it has worked. So the things we are telling you, the things we are telling Kenyans, it is not guesswork. Granted, because they are not, we don't insult people and we don't call them, profiling labels.
They may not sound sexy.
They may not sound sexy.
Can they be done immediately? Do they have to wait for Raila to become president?
They are being done immediately. In Elgeyo Marakwet, in Kisumu, in Nyandarua, in Laikipia, in Nakuru. Just 3 days ago, KCB and Nakuru County government signed, a replica of what is going on between KCB and Laikipia. And you saw it just in today's newspapers. In fact, they were announcing this. So we are doing these things. We are not waiting. But we want nationally so that we can do it nationally and do it bigger and ensure that Kenya is moving forward. And not one region of Kenya, all of us.
We haven't even scratched the surface of all the questions that even Kenyans have. And I'm seeing very many have been calling. So we can pick calls in the next hour and just get to understand a couple of things, one or two about the Azimio and the Azimio campaign promises. If you can spare a couple of more minutes.
Oh, I'm in the service of Kenyans, Eric. I mean, I'm not sparing. This is my
let's first
job.
say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home, who've been with us since the top of the hour. The conversations continue on SpiceFM, so you can switch on to SpiceFM 94.4 if you're in Nairobi. If you're in Nyeri, Nanyuki, and the other parts of Laikipia, it's 90.9. Malindi, 97.7. 96.7 in Eldoret, 96.0 in Nakuru, and Kisumu is 102.5. Well, Mombasa, it's 87.9. And if you're going far from a radio, you can actually follow us on our live stream. You switch over to YouTube, you'll find us. Just search for SpiceFM and also search for SpiceFM on Facebook. Governor Nderitu Mureithi, the chair of the Azimio Presidential Candidates Campaign Board, is with us this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
I hope you don't believe that a hustler is a poor person. Hustler is a person who is making his living through hard work.
The group of leaders we are having now, Kenyans, listen, the chemical composition is the same. You will mold them to ODM, then NASA, you mold them to Kanu, mold them to Jubilee, mold them to any other different color sometimes, but the chemical composition is the same.
It's not about me as Nurdin Haji, but it's about the constitution that I swore to protect. So when individuals attempt to hoard those powers and they want to be investigators and also prosecutors, then of course I have to defend that position because that position is in the constitution and that's what Kenyans wanted.
I'll tell you what happens is that when you ignore court orders, you're creating and quoting anarchy. Then you create a very dangerous precedent.
A story is told of the first president of the country who also went to visit Mathare, presidential tour. And of course, he went to this place and he introduced himself. So one of the enemies says, hata wewe kuna jina kama yangu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's coming up to a minute to 9 o'clock. The conversation continues with Governor Nderitu Mureithi, the governor of Laikipia County, the chairman of the Finance Committee and the Council of Governors, PNU Supremo, and also a chairman of the board for the Azimio La Umoja Presidential Candidate Election Board. Now, Very many questions I'm seeing on social media and comments as well. Sir Darlington says, thank you for the guarantees, Bono Governor. Guys, this is the marking scheme. He says, let's look at the track record, the character, the how that the person is promising to deliver. Regards to our studio guest, that's what Zachary is saying. Governor Nderitu Mureithi. Now, kindly ask him what he thinks will happen to Kenya after August 9th this year. So what is this that's going to happen to Kenya after August 9th? These are very many more questions coming in on SpiceFM KE, on Twitter, on Facebook, and also on Instagram. The governor will be responding to these questions, and we'll open up the phone lines at some point. I'll tell you when. We open up the phone line 0719012600. Keep you right here for continuation of this conversation. It's now 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Choose your preferred driver, mode of transport, and negotiate your fare to your destination for a safe, comfortable, and affordable trip only with InDriver.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The National Development Implementation Technical Committee will conduct 2 days of extensive inspection of multi-billion infrastructural and other projects in the coast region. The committee chairperson, Dr. Karanja Kibisho, who is also the Interior Principal Secretary, will lead a team of about 40 Principal Secretaries, heads of parastatals and other government agencies during the inspection tour slated for tomorrow and Wednesday. The team, that will be divided into 4 groups, will visit mega projects being funded by the national government in Mombasa, Kwale and Kilifi counties. Still in Mombasa County, and the Mombasa County government has directed motor vehicle showrooms and petroleum tankers operating within the CBD to relocate within 30 days to a designated area on the mainland side in Jomvu sub-county. In a special gazette notice, Transport Infrastructure and Public Works County Executive Officer Tafik Balala warned those who will defy the directive that their businesses would be closed down. The county government posits that the decision to relocate showrooms and petroleum tankers out of the CBD is aimed at decongesting and instituting proper planning of the coastal city. Balala defended his decision, arguing that the county government is legally mandated to relocate car showrooms and fuel tankers to designated areas of industrial parking in Jomvu. Now, all 144 coffee factories within Murang'a County are set to get new coffee drying beds within the next 8 months. The Irungu Nyakera Foundation, in partnership with Kenya Coffee Platform, has started to install the new beds in an effort to boost quality of coffee. Former Planning Principal Secretary Irungu Nyakera says his foundation is committed to reviving the coffee subsector, saying new drying beds will ensure the quality of coffee is not compromised. The drying beds, he said, have also made farmers end up with lesser money from their produce, as poor drying results in poor quality of coffee getting to buyers. And Nigeria is working to develop a COVID-19 vaccine, says President Muhammadu Buhari, as the country battles growing cases of the virus. Health experts say Nigeria needs to triple its vaccination drive from just over 100,000 doses a day to meet its target of inoculating more than half of its population by end of next year. The West African country has been exploring options to acquire or purchase vaccines through the COVAX facility to enable it to inoculate at least 70% of the population. This, as Kenya continues to record new cases of COVID-19. You are being urged to continue observing the COVID-19 protocols. Go get tested, get vaccinated so that you may protect yourself and those that you love. This message is approved by Newswire. And with kidnappings and other crimes on rise in Nigeria, the U.S. Department of State is urging Americans, dual citizens and others to reconsider travel to the West African country. The State Department's travel advisory warns that violent crimes such as armed robbery, assault, carjacking, kidnapping, hostage-taking, banditry and rape is common throughout the country. The U.S. advisory includes a flat do-not-travel warning for Borno, Yobe and northern Adamawa states due to terrorism and kidnapping concerns, and a similar warning for the northern states of Bauchi, Gombe, Kaduna, Kano, Katsina and Zamfara due to kidnapping. Africa's most populous country has been gripped by growing insecurity, including a surge in kidnapping for ransom. In Kaduna, state alone, the government reported 1,723 people kidnapped in the first 6 months of 2021, compared with nearly 2,000 for the entire previous year. And Kazakhstan President Kassym-Jomart has ordered security forces to kill without warning to crush the violent protests that have paralyzed the former Soviet Republic and reportedly left dozens dead. Tokayev said the unrest that began as protests against rising fuel prices had been masterminded by well-trained terrorist bandits from both sides and outside the country. Reports indicate that 18 security personnel and 26 armed criminals had been killed in violent protests. More than 3,000 people have been detained. Tokayev said the situation had stabilized in Kazakhstan's largest city, Almaty, and that the introduction of a state of emergency is yielding results. To a sad story, 19 people were killed, including 9 children, and dozens were injured when a fire started by a malfunctioning space heater spread smoke through a low-income building in the Bronx, New York City. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, just over a week into the job, confirmed 19 people had died from the blaze that broke out at around 1 a.m. in the imposing 19th-floor Twin Parks Northwest building, which provided affordable housing units and was home to a Gambian community. Officials said 32 people had been hospitalized with life-threatening injuries, and some 60 people were injured in total as smoke drifted through the building on a cold winter morning. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Download the InDriver app from the App Store or Google Play Store to enjoy a safe, comfortable, and affordable ride around Nairobi.
Kenyans back on the roads in full swing this morning, and we're seeing quite a lot of traffic. The Utali Drift this morning, whereby there was no traffic last week, is absolutely jam-packed. And a few minutes after 9 o'clock, and the Thika Superhighway is not letting up in terms of that drama that happened earlier. Kiambu Road trying to feed off onto the Thika Superhighway as well. That's thick as you get just past the DCI. We're looking at Uhuru Highway, and that's quite heavy as well. Coming off of the Southern Bypass, Lekoni Interchange, getting off Mombasa Road, looks a bit tight this morning. So some traffic leading off in that direction. Langata Road has not stopped, and traffic is thumping in that direction, coming out of Westlands as it is. Don't forget, guys, except for the Southern Bypass, which has a bit of a hiccup this morning, your bypasses are looking pretty good. Eastern, Redlink, Northern, you can use those. Still the Southern Bypass, you can use that after you get through that traffic that's happening there. Sabaki is where the traffic starts on Mombasa Road, and that's inbound to the city. So just so you know, it's not going to end at 9:30 as it usually does. We're going to have a look at what it looks like in about half an hour and see how it gets better. Talk, however, SpiceFMKE on Twitter, text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the
8
only
minutes
way
after
to
9.
start
This
your
is Kenya's
day.
biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Thank you very much for keeping it locked on Spice FM. Governor of Laikipia County, the Honorable Nderitu Mureithi, is still with us. But let's begin with the day's proverb. City.
Penye miti hakuna wajenzi.
Penye miti hakuna wajenzi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One comment coming in. Penye miti mingi. This one is adding mingi.
Actually, the moment you say miti, the mingi
is
incorporated, yes.
Yeah. And the translation of it is often families with lots of privilege hardly produce successful sons and daughters.
Whoa.
There is privilege, it's all here.
Whoa. It's a popular narrative, but it isn't supported by facts or truth.
Well, penye miti mingi.
You know,
the urgency of taking advantage of the trees.
The point that is being made is not difficult to understand. However, when you talk of privilege, you also talk of exposure. Now, exposure can give you one huge head start. Just that, exposure.
Yes.
And it is the reason why Kenyans would give an arm and a leg and have given an arm and leg to ensure that people get an education. Because it's something we've understood. It's an understanding we haven't moved from. The doors that education opened.
There was another translation there. If you just could scroll a bit and do. Somebody has talked about their understanding of this proverb with and linking it to, was it privilege? It's not there. Maybe in the next column. You're going so fast, even you can read what you...
No, I remember, there it is. I remember I had seen it before.
Yes. The proverb speaks to capacity versus resources. It means sometimes the resources are not matched with capacity. Masons lack trees, just like where there is abundance of wood, you may lack masons.
Is that an interesting perspective?
It's beautiful.
Indeed.
It's a mismatch of...
But this is really the essence of Proverbs, is it not?
Okay.
Yeah.
There's something that His Excellency mentioned. I liked it in this respect. One, he was talking about the reality of what can be done. Not will be done, can be done and is actually being done. Like when you talk about bank ratios, for instance, okay? You're saying 4 shillings and 75 cents is deducted can be reduced. Now, there is logic behind that 4 shillings and 75 cents. And it's in policy. So I assume that for there to be a reduction, it means policy will be changed. Now, what else do we have in this country that requires changing, that all you require is a tweak and a change in policy?
So, cash ratio is one, which you have already spoken to. Who does it require? It requires Governor of Central Bank and a few people like that. So it's a policy. It's a very... it is something done technically.
Yes.
So that's one. And for example, if you recall in Kibaki time, what forced banks to go on the street, Namkopo ya Salo, was using that instrument. Number two, the special economic zones law and the export processing zones law give preference for imported machinery. So if you start a business in the EPZ, the law gives you an incentive that if you import machines from...
It gives you preferential treatment.
Yes. So you just remove that preference, because what it does is make Kenyan-made machines
more
expensive relative to. So companies like Gearbox, companies like Mwireri Engineering, companies like Sagak Tech, companies like Numerical Machining find themselves outcompeted by Chinese and Indian manufacturers because of a law that we have. So we just go and change it. Eggs. We import eggs from Uganda, and right now we have a bit of a tiff between Kenya and Uganda. CT is laughing at us. Now, we import eggs. They come to Angige market up the road here in Kiambu, and they are cheaper from Jinja to here. Why? They are cheaper because the cost of feeds animal feeds, basically, chicken feed, but the rest is cheaper in Uganda than Kenya. Why? Because Kenya imports 90% of our wheat requirements and still maintains a duty, an import duty. So we just remove it. Okay. So we have 30 such points, and we'll be releasing them because we also notice that our competitors like to copy us. So we don't want to say all of them right now. But we have 30 such items. They don't require money. They just require us to make the right decision. Of course, City, the reason I told you it requires courage. This duty on wheat was put to protect farmers, Kenyan farmers. So obviously there will be resistance. However, we, Azimio, we will protect those farmers, not by taxing everybody, but by giving them a direct subsidy so that they are not worse off. But allow me not to tell all our secrets in one go.
Even if you gave just one, Governor, I mean, as you have done already, it really sounds really nice. Let's just take a scenario that happened in the country over the last few weeks.
Indeed.
We were told about the
potatoes.
This one that happened on Friday. We were told about the promise of electricity, right? Kenyans were told this is going to happen, and we gobbled it up. Everybody gobbled it up, was very, very happy. And then along the line, okay, you're told, well, maybe in a couple of months it'll happen. And then, okay, it's 15%. And then it'll be a 15% later. And then it'll maybe... When you tell something to people whose expectation you've raised through the roof, they're going to harp on it for a very good part of their existence until they can hope this thing comes into being. And unfortunately, the record has been that there have been many things which Kenyans have been promised and then it doesn't happen. When you hear something like this, farmers have been crying for the longest time about, the reduction of some of these things, for the hope that subsidies would be introduced, etc., etc. When you tell them that that a possible incoming government will promise them 1, 2, 3, it's very easy that an entire decision will be made on that promise. It's also heartbreaking that they then live in the existence where this promise is then not kept, which we have seen play over several times. And it may look as though we're like a dog with a bone here, but how else would you want Kenyans to exist in a space whereby promises have been made to them and either only delivered in part or not delivered at all?
Change you can believe in, I guess, and change that you can touch, change that would be real, I guess. And I think you asked me what guarantee, and I suggested let us look at character, let us look at conviction, let us look at track record as some of the things that can give us a bit of confidence whether these promises will be kept. And above all, I said that it is better to travel a journey with somebody who actually knows the way than somebody who is guessing the way. And so let's go back to this issue of eggs, for example, and why we import eggs. The analysis is now completed and has been complete for time as to why. Because I tell you, if you don't understand the reason why something is happening, then you'll be shooting in the dark. You'll be guessing. But we now know for fact the reason Uganda outcompetes us in production of eggs is because the cost of animal feeds is higher in Kenya than Uganda. And the reason cost of animal feeds is higher is the import duty on wheat. Now, because we only produce less than 10% of our requirements as Kenya, I say again, we only grow less than 10% of the wheat that we need.
That we consume.
Therefore, it is cheaper to give a direct subsidy to those who produce the 10% than to tax the whole
the rest
100%. And that is what we will do. It is very, very straightforward. Of course, you have to be able to explain it well, because those farmers, like now what you will see some of these ill-informed people doing, they will start saying, "Oh, Derito has said they are not keen on supporting farmers." I'm just telling you how people. What I'm telling you is that instead of taxing the entire 100%, it is cheaper to give a direct support, a direct subsidy to those who produce the 10% of our wheat, and that brings down the whole cost function.
But Your Excellency, these are tools that have been used from time immemorial.
Yes.
Why have we delayed in using them? I mean, you look at Japan. They have a cadre of people called rice farmers.
Mm-hmm.
They produce their rice very expensively.
Yes.
Compared to their neighbors.
Mm.
But the government does exactly what you are saying. Because this is something they understood.
Again, I tell you, Courage City, first of all, remember that in the 90s and in the 2000s,
yes,
a lot of us, unfortunately, African countries and other developing countries, we adopt a certain set of policies promoted mainly by my former employer and others. No, I have to be, honesty is part of the healing process. Promoted by the World Bank, the IMF, and so on. And other institutions, of course, including the US government itself.
Yes.
And these policies came to be called Washington Consensus and so on and so on. But basically, to bring it down is that they said allow the market to function. Don't interfere.
Called market-driven.
Market-driven. Don't do subsidies. Never mind, they themselves were subsidizing their farmers. You understand? Now, I'll just give you another one that I'm sure is somewhat controversial. Take milk.
Yes.
And again, we are in a bit of a tiff with our brothers in Uganda about milk again. Now, what is it about milk? Milk powder is on the special list in terms of duty, which means that you don't pay duty when you import milk powder. Okay. The reason our neighbors sometimes don't like that particular policy is that because farmers in New Zealand and Holland are themselves subsidized, the milk powder sold by those countries is already subsidized. So if you don't subsidize our own, or if you don't impose a countervailing duty, then you are giving preference to the milk from New Zealand. Now, no wonder, if you go to New Zealand, every dairy farmer has, frankly, a Range Rover and a boat. Because they are looked after. You understand? Now, when they sell,
yes.
So COMESA, for example, our partners in COMESA would like us to have a little bit of an import duty on milk powder brought from
outside
COMESA. But we haven't done it. Now that's again, it requires courage, because remember, milk is a major thing we produce in Kenya, and there are many milk farmers. So the right policy needs to be there to support those farmers and to increase their access to the COMESA market. So again, not rocket science. However, believe you me, City, and I want to plead with Kenyans, let us work with a team that is not guessing. It knows the way, and above all, has courage to implement some of the things that have not
said.
Let me conclude that point in this manner. We all know we've had this kind of known public debate between ourselves, the county government of Laikipia, and the National Transport and Safety Authority, and my very great friend George Njau, who is the Director General there. Why? Because the system that runs number plates in Kenya is called the Transport Integrated Management System, TIMS. Whoever designed it and created it, and we are not assigning
no names mentioned,
no names,
whoever.
But that system, until recently, required that you bring a customs entry number. So when you apply for a number plate, part of your application contains a customs entry number.
That means that the vehicle is imported.
That means the thing is imported. For whom is this system being created?
So Laikipia is producing its own.
We are producing tuk-tuks.
Unless you export them to Kenya.
Yeah, we had, and thank you to PS Mariga and many other senior persons who intervened so that the system can be changed so that it does the correct thing. It is well known. We had quite a bit of debate with the Kenya Bureau of Standards, KEBS. Why? Because they are asking of our tuk-tuk. And I want to... Okay, let me not... But CT, do you know what is homologation? Exactly. Exactly. I ask again, do you know what is homologation? Exactly. There is apparently a Kenya Standard 2717, Kenya Standards 2717 called homologation, which requires you as a manufacturer now like Sagak Tech to prove that your production systems are good enough so that your product can be sold in New York and Europe.
The one that you're producing for Kenya.
Exactly. So we went to KEBS and said, look, guys, we are making our own tuk-tuk. We have no immediate interest in selling it in New York. It is our tuk-tuk for carrying our maize and our warus from Suera to Nyahururu town or Subukia to Nyahururu town. What is this homologation you are telling us? So, courage. And again, I plead with Kenyans, let us walk with a team that knows what is
needs
to be done and has the courage to do it.
Let's go to the phone lines. We've got two callers on the line so far. Brian in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
Thank you very much for this conversation. And I want to go straight to the point and ask the governor a few questions and clarification.
Proceed.
Governor,
proceed.
Please keep on giving Kenyans this technical thing so that they can interrogate. Don't shy away. Number one, on that issue of cash ratio, the bank cash ratio, you were asked where the money for the 6,000 will come from. And you said, for example, you can reduce that cash ratio to 1.5 from 4%. Does that 3 shillings, 25 cents belong to the government? No.
No, of course
The
not.
only thing, yes. So how do we raise taxation? Not how do we make liquidity. Liquidity will not help in that social protection because that money is not government money.
No, what liquidity will do, Brian, liquidity, and we've proved the case before. When we brought down the cash ratio previously, it released productivity, or it released liquidity into production. When you have higher levels of production, you inevitably collect more tax. Let me repeat again, Brian. If we bring back down, if we release 600 billion or 500 of liquidity back into the market, what will happen? Number one thing, interest rates will come down, which means you and I, as producers, we are paying less for money we have borrowed for production. It means production will go up. It means even at the same level of taxation, government will be able to collect more taxes. Now, the reason I just stopped at saying cash ratio is that that's the trigger of that whole set of economic goings on. And because it's a little bit technical, as you had me say previously, and unfortunately, maybe for economists like me and for Azimio, these technical things are not very easy on the political podium, but they're actually what works.
Okay.
Second question, Brian.
Because somebody asked you on the same thing. The reason why that ratio was put at that percentage, maybe it's for stability of banks and etc. So on the contrary to what you're saying also, we can have inflation as an after effect of that liquidity if not controlled. Second question, you talked about 1.3 billion per sub-county already in existence.
In my own county. In my own county.
In your own county, which I believe there are three.
There are 3 ones, yeah.
Meaning that's 3.9 billion against an allocation of 4-point-something billion. How does the government function on the other function other than that?
Thank you, Brian.
The other money coming from?
How the stimulus works in Laikipia, it is market-based, meaning we have negotiated with leading commercial banks in Kenya, about 5 of them, that have provided the liquidity, and the responsibility of my government is to buy down the cost of the credit. So the actual resources I need is 5% of that amount, and you'll find that that is basically 200 million. That's the amount
finally,
I need in order to
Yes.
support the 4 billion economic stimulus. Yes, Brian?
Finally, on the issue of this taxation we've been talking about on these products.
Yes.
Right now in Azimio, you have the numbers in Parliament.
Yes.
The budget policy statement was out the other time.
Yes.
I have not seen these things in place. In fact, I've seen the government is planning to bail out KQ to a tune of 146 billion. That one can subsidize the cost of power for everyone in the country, and can decide to subsidize the cost of fuel for everyone. But one entity with shadowy beneficiary, the government want to bail them out at a tune of 146 billion. Yet you people in Azimio can call a special sitting to talk about a political party's bill and not people-driven things, because you said the impediment of these inputs for animal feeds is taxation. You have number. Use that courage now. We want track record now.
Okay. Well, I think that is fair, Brian. That is fair, Brian. Still, I want to say that Azimio is the incoming government. It is not the current sitting government. However, you raise a valid point about, why we do things now? And it is my view, in the balance of time left between now and campaigns, that we must use our numbers in Parliament and in the Senate for good, and also in the county assemblies. But on this, on this economic stimulus, Brian, I just want to emphasize again, it is market-driven, meaning I'm working with commercial banks. It is not resources out of my budget. What is in my budget, or what is my responsibility, is buying down the cost of credit, so that you, as a small business in Laikipia, you are now accessing credit at 7% as opposed to 12%. And that is the kind of innovation required. Also, it involves financing you for LPO finance, so that when you get business with my government or any other government, we give you working capital to be able to work. It involves also prepaying you or paying you faster, which is called invoice discounting, so that if I owe you money, if my government owes you money, I stamp on your invoice, and your banker provides you that liquidity so that your business is working. But it's also more than that. The economic stimulus is also about the taxation rebates to buy down the cost of power and so on. But I think your point is valid, Brian, that we should use our numbers even today for the force of good. I thank you.
All right. Let's hear from Kennedy in Kisumu. Good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you doing?
Fine, thanks.
Good morning, Ndu. Welcome. CT, welcome back.
Thank you very much, sir.
I appreciate Ndu for just giving you such a huge welcome back. Ndu, excellent.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, darling. You are actually just making the studio just be bubbling. All right, now.
Yes, Kennedy.
His Excellency, the Governor, how are you?
I'm fine, Kennedy. Please go to your point or question.
Fantastic. Now, here's my question. I'm so much impressed with you. The very first day I actually heard you talking when you were launching the Azimio with Raila Odinga back then somewhere. You actually produced a very amazing point, and truly speaking, you attracted my attention to the extremes, right?
Your question, Kennedy.
Now, my question is this, right? Like Brian has said,
Yes.
We need you guys to actually show us the actions that you are intending to execute starting now. Do you? And I need you to underline the word now.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Are we together? And my first concern is this one. Back then, when the president actually gave us the public address concerning the state of economic affairs, we realized that it was actually full of a lot of things which are not actually happening on the ground right now. You are an economist, and truly you can understand the scope of all these things clearly, professionally. Is that true? The president told us that we are actually running on 11 trillion GDP. Out of the research that I've actually done myself, because I've done a little bit of some economics, the 7.5 trillion is actually going out and getting drained to clear the debt that we have taken as a country. And that one is actually leaving us with something which is less than 4 trillion Kenyan shillings to ride on as the general GDP. Do you hear me, His Excellency?
I hear you, Kennedy.
And therefore, you use your numbers and your strength, like Brian is saying, to correct all this function. Because I'm a professional interior designer, and I've done some little economics. I do business myself, and therefore, we are actually pegging our investment on the report that is coming from you guys, because we know for sure that you have employed some experts to advise the president, including yourself, correctly, so that we do the right thing, or
That's
else
right.
we will brand you quack.
Thank you, Kennedy. Thank you, Kennedy. That's on a quite a strong note. Kennedy, let me respond the following way. Debt. I want to start with debt, but I'll answer all your questions. I want to start with debt. The issue is never the amount of debt. The issue is ability to pay. Kennedy, I am sure you know individuals, maybe micro businesses who have gotten into trouble, say with a debt of 100,000 or a debt of 50,000. You also know companies like Brian mentioned KQ, who got into trouble for far bigger amounts. The issue is ability to pay. So, where does ability to pay come from? Where does the ability to pay the debts in Kenya come from? So pause on that question for a moment, Kennedy. I also want to tell you that the ratios you hear thrown around in town, that, the ratio of of debt to GDP is too high for Kenya. Too high compared to who? The ratio in Kenya is 68%. The amount of debt, the total amount of debt vis-a-vis the annual GDP is 68%. In Barbados, that figure is 140%. In Portugal, is 130%. In Japan, is 210%. So it is high according to who? High according to my former employers. And we have already been through that point, Kennedy. But ability to pay. Ability to pay is about productivity. Okay? Are Kenyan companies, Kenyan taxpayers, Kenyan employees, are we able to increase their productivity? Now, Kennedy, that productivity cannot increase without good infrastructure. So the infrastructure is necessary condition for the productivity to increase. But it is not sufficient. There are certain things we have to do. And those are the things we are talking about in stimulating the economy.
Those are the things that you need to do next.
Those are the things we need to do next.
Let's take a break on that note. It's 23 minutes to 10, Kenya's biggest conversation with the governor of Laikipia County, Derito Mureithi. We are talking about the Azimio la Umoja campaign and the promise of the Azimio la Umoja campaign. You'll tell us about that. How then if out of every 100 shillings that we are collecting in tax, how much is going to repay debt?
Yeah, and
it's a lot.
No. The debt service is about 1 trillion.
Yes,
that's the debt service level as we speak today.
Out of
both paying
raised.
out of 3.3 trillion. So about nearly 30% of our annual income is going for debt service. Should we aim for it to be lower? I think it would be useful for it to be lower, but it's not catastrophic or anything like that.
Okay, time for a break. We'll be back shortly and pick more of your calls. Nyakwara is on the line. We'll pick your call, Nyakwara, shortly after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
There's so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog.
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafande hii umbo yako iko na
hii ni umba special.
All right, the sunny day in Nairobi at 21. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 16 today. It's 19 degrees and sunny in Nakuru, highs of 28 and lows of 13. 11 will be the low in Nyeri, where it's 19 and sunny, going to highs of 25. And Eldoret, sunny through today, highs of 26 and lows of 14. Partly sunny conditions in Mombasa at 29. We'll see highs of 31 will be the high in Malindi, where it's partly sunny currently at 29. Sunny at 26 in Kisumu, highs of 32 and lows of 19, while in Kakamega at 27, it's sunny, highs of 34 today and lows of 15. Kampala is sunny at 24, highs of 29 and lows of 18. While we're looking at cloudy conditions in Dar es Salaam at 30, we'll see highs of 33 and lows of 27. It's a sunny day in Joburg as well at 19, highs of 25 and lows of 16. While it's sunny in Lagos at 26, we'll see highs of 33 and lows of 25. It's sunny as well in Kinshasa at 25. We'll see highs of 32 and lows of 24. Going into early evening out in Beijing, it's 2 degrees and sunny, highs of 3 and lows of minus 10. While in Paris, it's a foggy morning at 1. There's a flood warning, highs of 7 and lows of minus 1. London is clear at 3. That'll be today's low, going to highs of 8. And round it off in New York, where coming into early Monday, it's 5 degrees, highs of just that and lows of minus 10. Traffic hour is not ending anytime soon, at least not for this morning. Langata Road is still quite heavy, and we're seeing the same thing replicating itself on Gong Road this morning. As you get into the city via Huru Highway, you're going to slow down just a little bit at the Haile Selassie roundabout. And into the city, that's a mishmash of traffic today. Industrial area still continues. The issue that was there on the southern bypass looking a little bit better now, so you can use that as an escape route from the madness that is the city. It's not getting any better on the Thika Superhighway. I guess everybody definitely is back in the second week of January. We're looking at Kiambu Road as still a thing. Looking a little bit better on Limuru Road, but still a bit crazy. And Waiyaki Way continues. Not to forget, guys, use your bypasses. They'll help, at least for today. Let's talk through the day on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
so let's
Nairobi.
Continue. Let's engage with the governor of Laikipia, the Honorable Derito Mureithi. Nyakwara is on the line from Nairobi. Good morning, Nyakwara.
Good morning, Tim.
Good morning.
Thanks, Governor, and really loving this conversation this morning. I wanted to throw 3 challenges to you as you go about articulating what Azimio is and what you guys are thinking about for this country.
Indeed.
The first one is what you said, and I want to differ with you. Mm-hmm. Much as this kind of talk is not seen as sexy, I think this is the kind of talk that this country needs. We need to be able to give the citizen a model to be able to have a conversation with the people who are coming into governance or into leadership. So a lot of us out here are really worried when we say we're changing the conversation or the narrative about what we talk about, but people don't understand what we are telling them we want to do for them, right? How do we start to break this stuff so that people really understand what we talk? And if we really want to change the narrative, then how do we give more of this to people? When you talk about the cash ratio and how that triggers all the way through to taxation, and therefore being able to provide social safety net, that really made sense to me. And I believe that made sense to a lot of people. So how do we have more of this is really my first challenge.
Mm-hmm.
The second challenge that I want you to address is how do we replicate what is working across the country? You talk about the first 3 or 4 Azimio counties and what they're doing, right? Mm-hmm. But if we truly believe in the philosophy of shared prosperity, which I believe is what Azimio is trying to sell us, then you need to be talking to us to how do you take that and replicate it beyond the Azimio counties? How do you make sure that this goes into Uasin Gishu, this goes into Turkana, and I'm not branding areas as not being Azimio, but goes into every part of this country, because you cannot talk about Azimio or unity when we don't talk about that shared prosperity. So how do we take what is working like here in Kisumu, in Nakuru, and replicate that across and that needs to be articulated in what you bring back to us. And then the third piece, which I think needs to be considered, further, is how do you reduce taxation for Kenyan businesses, for the Kenyan taxpayer, and I'm really looking at the people who are employed.
Okay.
Second example, last year during the COVID, there was the tax rebate that came to businesses, right? Mm-hmm. I believe that went a long way in inspiring new jobs during that very, very difficult time and supporting the economy. How do we replicate that model and push it forward, even as we look into the next 5 or 10 years of this nation?
Thank you, Kennedy. This is Nyakwara, not Kennedy. Mm. Thank you, Nyakwara. Very, very quickly, but maybe it's because I need to tie off a question from Kennedy and then I go to Nyakwara. GDP is in fact 11 trillion plus. Are things happening now? The things are happening now, Kennedy, and you will see in a moment. Now on to the questions asked by Nyakwara. We agree with you. This economic conversation, difficult though it may well be, or technical perhaps is what we mean, this is the conversation Kenya needs to have. Because frankly, the rest of it, the stage drama that is politics, is not going to change meaningfully. It's not going to put money in your pocket or my pocket or the pocket of Kenyans. It is this fairly technical stuff that we need to debate, because a lot of it is about choices that we have to make as Kenyans. So I totally agree with you. I was only saying that when you say a figure like GDP, somebody even asked, measured how and so on. So, but it is the conversation we need to be having. Can we replicate what is working? That is actually the point. We must take what is working from different counties and different places and be able to do it on a national scale. And not just for any one particular. Now, look, the policies that I am able to carry out as a governor of a particular county, unfortunately, the law restricts me to that space. At a national level, supporting small business is going to be national. So you are quite right. It is to take what is working and to make it or to take it national so that we are stimulating economic activity across the nation. On reduction of taxation, again, I give you the example of Laikipia. What we are doing ourselves is giving tax rebate to small business to buy down, as I said, cost of power, cost of credit, and above all, cost of logistics. And this is the point I really wanted to emphasize. Now, what happens if you say you are an SME in Nairobi, where we are sitting right now? When you produce something, say you produce yogurt, when you go down this way to Machakos, you will pay tax there also.
Yep.
If you go to Kajiado, you'll pay tax. If you go to Kiambu, you'll pay tax. Now, we in Laikipia, this financial year, we are providing a tax rebate to buy down that taxation, because that is taxation. And again, to make SMEs competitive. More globally, as a central economic bloc, we are actually negotiating a protocol to buy down, but I think we should be able ultimately to do it for the whole nation so that we make our SMEs competitive. So the answer is yes, yes, yes. to your three questions. I thank you.
You know, Governor, then there are a couple of questions that come in, and these on the political side, which if we just look at them on social media, they're looking at this thing that we are calling Azimio la Umoja, and, you know, the vehicle that it brings and the personalities that it brings together. So Azimio la Umoja is bringing in the personalities who are in ODM and Jubilee and some independents like yourself.
And PNU.
And PNU now, and then other parties. These are the same individuals who have been in different formations previously. And so is it the Mount Kenya, like now, Azimio has a very strong presence of Mount Kenya luminaries such as yourself, such as the governor of Nyandarua, the governor of Nakuru, and others. Is it Mount Kenya looking at a place where then they can see they have some protection of the succession politics? Is this Mount Kenya securing a place in the next government?
No, it isn't. And you know, this question, are we the same people? The answer actually is yes. What we want is to organize ourselves differently and to have a different leader. And I want to tell you, Eric, the tone at the top is very, very, very important. Today it is asked of me and my government in Laikipia, how come we are able to do way more than a previous government? It's because of the tone at the top. How come we are able to collect twice as more taxes as a previous administrator collected? Because the citizen can see what I am doing with her money. So she is more willing to pay me. Even in this year of COVID, revenue is up. Half year revenue is up 23% in Laikipia. Yeah? Which is something like 74 million. It is up 106 million compared to the year before. It is up 110 million compared to it is steadily growing. Why? Because the citizen can see what her money is doing. I tell you, the tone as the top is absolutely critical for an organization, both in the public sector and in the private sector. So we are trying to organize ourselves differently and organize ourselves around certain principles that have worked before.
How?
Look, President Kibaki. Raila was a minister in President Kibaki's government, as was Oparanya, as was Uhuru, as was Derito, and so on. So yes, we are same but we want to organize ourselves differently and to carry out different roles. And we have done it before. We were the same fellows when we increased, when the economy was growing very, very rapidly in Kibaki 1. We are the same fellows who have grown infrastructure in a phenomenal manner. We just want to organize ourselves differently and to ensure that the tone at the top is intolerant, particularly of this thing called corruption.
Sure.
If there is a whiff of tolerance, forget whether the top, if there is even a whiff of tolerance of corruption, the entire edifice crumbles down.
Indeed, it does. So, I mean, even as you look at these, which is extremely important, it's either there's a continuance of development, or for me, I look at it as anybody who wants to come in and bring in more development has to be an agenda reformist. That so many things across board then have to change. But you cannot... How then will you divorce all of this from the political face that has clearly been attached to this? To say that where there might be a desire to bring about reform agenda, to bring about increased development, to turn the economy on its head, etc., that there's still that political face to things that people will look at over and above anything else. How do you remove that? Or is it necessary to do in the first place? How do you remove that and say that people are not just clamoring for political or personal expediency, but are actually interested genuinely in making things better in the country? Because people will blame and brandish you so many things. These are all the rich who are trying to coalesce around one another to make sure that they remain, relevant, or that they remain viable. How do you make sure
Yes.
that truly the interest is to make sure that Kenyans are at the top, that development of this country is foremost, is in the forefront.
You know, rhetoric. Rhetoric is politics without policy. Rhetoric is politics without policy. Which means, you know, we go through a platform, we are trying to whip up emotions.
Right.
But if you dig deeper into what is contained, what policy is contained in the promise, it is hakuna. On the other hand, you know, policy without politics is blind. Because policy is something that happens obviously out of a political process. And that's the process we call the general election. That we go and say, please CT, vote for me because I want to support small business in this manner. Then you ask me, you Derito, how do I know that you can do it? Then I'll say, because I did it yesterday in Laikipia and I was successful. That really is the conversation that Kenya is having today. Our competitors will say, please CT, vote for me because I will support small businesses. Then you must ask them, where is your evidence also of supporting small business? Roho safi tu. So that it's you are comparing like for likes. So my answer is that rhetoric is politics without policy.
Eric, do we have a minute?
Yes.
You know, there's something you've said repeatedly, and that is the sort of messaging that Azimio wants to put across is not sexy. So what? You have in your ranks people who understand how to package these complex, interesting, intertwining things in a way that can be sold sexily, if I may use the term. Surely you have a plan.
To do so. Yes.
Surely you must.
And we will. And we will. We merely recognize that the economic message, the economic conversation, which is what we must have, is that much harder. But we recognize we must do it, and I'm quite certain we are up to the task. I want to emphasize to all of us as Kenyans, as we make decisions about this year, reflect on character, reflect on conviction, reflect on content, so that we walk with those who know the way, not those who are guessing which way we are going.
So let's talk about debt, because it's also a big conversation that people will keep asking. So I know you've said our debt to GDP ratio is not at an alarming space, but it's high. You're saying we are repaying 1 trillion shillings every year, and yet you're collecting about 1.7 trillion shillings every year. That's high. How does that Azimio hope to address the debt issue and also to address growing income without increasing taxes?
First, the profile of the debt needs restructuring. What do I mean by restructuring? We need to trade more expensive debt for cheaper debt. Is it possible? The answer is yes. How? Remember the question I was asked earlier about cash ratio. Now, if you release 700 billion worth of liquidity back in the marketplace, it means that you can be able to sell treasury bonds. Instead of 12%, you sell them for 7 or 8%, because the money is sitting there idle. So you sell it for 7 or 8%, and you are therefore bringing down or changing the profile of the debt service. And we believe we can actually save upwards of 300 billion in debt service by doing so. In addition, let's turn to the productivity side. So you want to bring down the amount of debt service. How do you do it? By releasing liquidity that is sitting idle to help you with that issue. On the production side, by doing so, if you bring the cost of government debt from 12% to 7%, you bring down the interest rates that affect businesses across the nation, which means the cost of people borrowing for their businesses comes down. What does that do? It helps in productivity. As you bring down cost of interest, even at a personal level, so personal credit, which means, all in all, is what economists we say, stop crowding out the private sector. Give it space, both at personal level for consumer growth, but also at business level. But we also believe we have to go beyond that in stimulating productivity. And we have said already, looking at the cost of power, further bringing down the cost of credit, removing the double taxation, if you will, or triple, that increases the cost of logistics. This is what I was trying to explain, that if you make yogurt here and you go down the road, we want you not to be taxed again. All of those things drive productivity. But above all, we want this campaign and the messaging of this campaign to drive hope, not fear.
It's about hope.
It's about hope, because without hope, when people believe things are going to get worse, they don't consume. Similarly, when businesses believe things are going to get worse, they hold back.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
You've said not enough, but you've said a lot. And thank you very much for joining us today in the Situation Room. Governor Nderitu Mureithi, who's the chair of the Azimio la Umoja Presidential Campaign Board. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it is my pleasure to be here. And we must thank all Kenyans who are listening and watching, and encourage everybody. Let us join together to build a better Kenya.
Asante sana. Have a lovely day, folks. Time actually just runs very fast when it's that time. It's 10 a.m. See you tomorrow morning.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Choose your preferred driver, mode of transport, and negotiate your fare to your destination for a safe, comfortable, and affordable trip only with InDriver.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire on Dennis Asset.